gravely disappointed. You plan to take your gasoline out of the wasteland.
All right.
Welcome to Movie Boners.
What's up, everybody?
I see you bubbling up a little bit over there.
Yeah, and it's dark.
What are you drinking?
Woo! I am drinking King Grackle Barrel-Aged Stout from Texas Beer Company.
Nice.
This one's gonna pack quite the wallop. It is. Oh, where'd I see it? Oh shit, I lost it. It's like a 9.2. Oh no, sorry. It's 11%.
Damn, son.
Oh shit.
All right. I'm going to have to get 2 beers to catch up to you. I am drinking from the West. That was amazing.
11%.
You'll be sipping on that one, huh?
Woohoo.
I'm drinking from the Westfax Brewing Company, a hazy IPA called Full Turbo.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, we both have, I mean, one, the ridiculous name, even though it's a bird, but ridiculous name, packs a fucking punch. Woo!
That's true.
See,
Like
we're going topical today.
Engine. Yeah. So I'm a little saddened because my movie draft is not going very well.
In terms of ratings?
In terms of ratings, yes. I foolishly only drafted Morbius as my only Marvel movie. And because WB beseeched it upon themselves to move the 2 other superhero movies, I have no more superhero movies this year. Poor me. I have the Batman. It's made almost $700 million. Poor me. I don't have any more superhero movies. But still, I was like, well, Morbius is a Marvel movie. It should be fine. It should be standard, fair. Fucking 4.7 on IMDb.
Oh my god. I haven't even looked at the rating. I'm going to try and see it at some point this weekend just to see it. You know it's going to make a bunch of money, so boo-hoo for you. But
probably, maybe. I don't know. The what's it called? Not IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes did that thing that they do where they don't post the rating until the day it comes out, and you always know it's bad when they do that. And I think it was rotten at 18%. So I think a lot less people are going to see this movie.
Well, I mean that helps me. I did laugh when I started seeing all the horrible reviews. Not that I'm going to make my own opinion on it. And knowing me, I'm like, man, I'm going to be like the one guy out there that's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Probably. It'll probably be like a Suicide Squad situation where there's a lot of backlash and there's this cycle that happens. The more something gets hate, then it just gets more and more hate, and it kind of just goes down from there.
Yeah.
Regardless of how good it actually is. But it means that my average rating fell significantly.
I would hope so.
You're at 6.75 and I'm at 6.5 at 8.6. So
yeah, thank you, Morbius. Woo-hoo!
I still have.
Shut up! We don't care. We don't care about that. That part doesn't matter. You got to hell.
But there's still. The game is still far from over.
It's true.
You have almost all of the movies in July and October. I don't have any more comic book movies. Like I said, you have 5 still.
And somehow I have the heavy hitters coming up too. So
you have Doctor Strange, Thor: Love and Thunder, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Black Adam, Black Panther, all the black stuff. In addition to a bunch of other big ones like the Jurassic Park. So yeah, I'm not worried about you at all at this point.
What did I say at the draft? Hopefully I get to claim at least the rating. And hopefully Avatar 2 gets pushed back to like January. That would be funny as fuck if they're like, you know what, we're gonna push it back to like the first weekend of January.
Like, we really just need to move it 2 weeks, and then to screw Jake, that would be great.
That would be great.
Oh well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, boo-hoo for you.
Boo for me, indeed. Have you seen anything new lately?
I did watch something new.
All right.
So I'm a big fan of like biopics. I like movies based on real life stuff, even though they get the real stories wrong half of the time. But I still enjoy them. I like watching
because they try to make it more interesting than it really was.
True. This one was crazy boring, and I felt so bad because it should have been really inspiring and awesome. And I was like, to the point, and you know me, like I will suffer through pretty much any movie. Yeah. I almost turned it off because I was like, I don't think I've ever been this bored during a biopic, ever. But I watched King Richard. And yeah, I was like, man, I feel bad for the Williams family because this movie kind of sucks.
I had honestly no interest in seeing it. So I was glad we didn't do the Oscar episode, so I didn't have to see it.
Right. Well, it was so boring, and a lot of the like portrayal of the dad, I was like, no, I get the dad's decisions. Like, I didn't think. I think he was a decent dad trying to teach his kids pretty valuable lessons. But the movie really kind of sucks. It's really boring, and I don't know why Will Smith got the Oscar because he doesn't do anything special in it, like at all. He doesn't do shit.
Well, I think that they just wanted to get him on stage after the slap. That was the thing. Like, quick, let's switch out the envelopes real quick so that we can make it super awkward for everybody.
I have not commented on this, and this is probably going to really be the only time I do make a comment.
Everybody's
on this.
Dying to know. They want to know your hot take.
I know. Well, you know me. Whether you want to or not, you're going to get it. And this will be really the only time.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for almost every award given after that moment.
Yeah.
Because no one, if you ask anyone what movie won Best Picture, or who won Best Actress, who won like Best Cinematography, no one knows. The only thing people know.
Well, honestly, I don't know any of the things that happened before it either.
True.
Because I didn't watch it.
We didn't watch it. But I felt bad for him, especially after I found out who did win the Best Picture, because it was like a movie about like a deaf family. It's about a kid who's raised in a deaf home, and the first deaf actor won the Best Actor. I thought that was pretty cool when I found that out.
Yeah.
But all that got completely ignored for the Academy to be like, you know what, we need to be relevant again. Let's get Will Smith to bitch slap Chris Rock. Fuck you. It made me not want to watch the Oscars even more.
Do you think it was scripted?
Part of me does.
That was my first reaction. I was like, of course it's scripted. And then I saw a comment that said, that's definitely not scripted because it's way more entertaining than anything the Oscars could come up with to do.
I was like, true. Well, that is true.
But true.
I also had to think like, man, no one has given a fuck about the Oscars for so long, and their viewership keeps like plummeting. It's not even a gradual, like, oh, there's a slight decline in audience. No, it's like, oh shit, people are watching reruns of like American Dad on Comedy Central at 1 a.m. more than they're watching the Oscars, a 3-4 hour ceremony.
I really enjoy the irony of people watching actors win awards for the best acting, asking themselves if the thing they're watching is real or not.
Yeah.
But no, none of it's real. It's publicity stuff.
I feel really bad for some of the winners because they got completely ignored and overshadowed by Will Smith PMSing on the stage, scripted or not. Other than that, I'm like, who gives a shit? I really like what Ricky Gervais said, where he was like, I wouldn't make fun of Jada Pinkett Smith. I'd make fun of her husband. I'm like, good job, Will Smith.
Part of me like feels bad for him because he's obviously trying to work through some shit. I don't think that he would have the same reaction if it was a man larger than him on stage. He took it out on a smaller Chris Rock. If it was Jason Momoa, it wouldn't be the same. But
well, if anything, he just helped boost Chris Rock's career back into like crazy relevancy. Did you hear he's selling out his stand-up tour now?
Oh, really?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised. Everybody wants to hear what he has to say now.
Right.
They're like, please make a joke about it.
But like, we're hitting comedian. They're making jokes. I saw that you posted the Chris. Oh man, D'Elia bit, which is one of my favorite bits ever. Where he's like, "It's weird when people get mad at comedians for doing what we do, telling jokes."
Yeah, you know why? We're joking.
That whole bit, and there's more, folks. Go watch the whole bit because
Chris D'Elia is great.
It's perfect. Yeah, so that's all I got to say about that. Fuck Will Smith for the moment.
Yeah,
and fuck the Academy because
I was over the memes immediately, and they've been going on for like 3 days, and I'm like, when is this going to end?
So we're recording this on Thursday, and I got home from work Sunday night. And was doing that like late night scroll, you know?
Yeah.
And every post was Will Smith, Will Smith, Will Smith, Will Smith. And then it was all these other celebrities like, I'm heartbroken, I'm disgusted. And you're like, you probably are the one that throws a glass of water at your interns for not having enough ice. Like, fuck off.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about it, Will Smith's like apology post was hilarious to me because he's like, violence in all of its forms is poisonous or whatever he says. I was like, you make movies, bro. Like, you're shooting people on the daily. Like, that violence is toxic too.
Your biggest hits are where you're playing a character shooting people up. Like,
yeah. The only reason I know who you are is because you punched an alien in the face and said, welcome to Earth.
Right. And what the hell is that smell? Yeah, that's really all I got about that. I was just like, it was, you know what it was? It was like, there it is. I'm validated. Jake and I are validated. Not watching this piece of shit show. Like, I
didn't hear anything about the hosts or the jokes or anything. So apparently they were not funny like I assumed they would be.
Right. Watch, it was probably like one of the better Oscars they've had, but no one knows because they only focused on the one moment.
Could be.
But yeah, like at first I felt a little weird. It was the first time since I was a little kid that I have not watched the Oscars.
Yeah.
So like at least 30 years I've been watching this thing every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little weird breaking like that tradition. And then I saw all the memes and was like, oh, you know what? I'm a man of tradition, but it's okay for some traditions to die. So I guess I'm not watching the Oscars really ever again because I don't care.
Yeah, they would have to drastically like change it up if it's just gonna be the same shit. I've seen it before.
But yeah, that was the only new movie was King Richard, and I felt like he's done a way better job acting in plenty of other movies and gotten no recognition for it.
Yeah,
and this one felt like true Academy fashion of just a political thing. So.
I did enjoy seeing that Justice League won that like fan award.
The fan reaction award, and then Army of the Dead won the fan favorite award. So I was like, fuck you, Warner Brothers.
Yeah, take that. I was very impressed, especially with all the other random ass movies it was up against. They weren't even like the related to anything that came out this year. It was like Endgame and a bunch of old stuff. Like, very confusing. Trying to be relevant, probably.
Well, I feel like the Oscars were just trying to do something to bring in younger crowd, but
trying to be like the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. But until somebody gets slimed, I don't care.
It was like them being like, "See, we listen to the audience." No, you don't. They didn't even give those awards to like the full theater. So,
right. I've finally got around to watching Death on the Nile.
Okay.
And it was pretty fun. I was kind of distracted watching it, so I can't really say either way, but it was a fine, nice movie. I did watch Flypaper, which is one that you recommended hidden gems I'd never seen, and I very much enjoyed it. That's a very fun movie.
Right? Isn't that just like, it's such a pleasant little quirky film. I love Flight Paper so much.
It is. Hidden gem is the best way to describe it. So you, I think, win on that account. I really want to watch the first episodes of Halo and Moon Knight, but I haven't yet.
Me neither.
Because I started watching Yellowstone again.
Oh, God
damn it. From the beginning.
Oh, son of a bitch.
And I'm going to be doing that for the next couple of weeks. It's so fucking
Jake,
good,
you've
bro.
watched that series like 4 times now. It's okay
I watched
to
it
watch
one time, one whole time, and I fell in love, and I'm going to watch it for the rest of my life. It doesn't come out until, like, the new season doesn't come out to this fall. I was like, Krista, we're going to watch this a couple more times this year.
Was Christy like, no, you are?
She's fine with it to this point. She's rewatching it with me. Maybe the 3rd or 4th time that will fizzle out. We'll see. So that's what I'm doing basically until the baby's here. Oh, so we mentioned last week at the end of the episode, if you didn't stick around, you didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
But letting you know, this is going to be the last episode for a little bit, not the last ever, but we're going into a hiatus as I prepare for the baby. You're working on some other stuff too.
Yep.
And so it'll be probably a month or 2. We will let you know. We'll still be active on social media, of course, keeping up with the draft, shit talking, all that good stuff. So check in with us.
I'm sure Jake's has like an arsenal of memes already locked and loaded, just ready to be let out of the bag.
You know it.
Yeah, it's a little bittersweet right now. I know we're coming back in like a month or 2, but I was like trying to prep for this episode and was like, oh, I'm kind of bummed out, but it's for good reasons. And yeah, I'll get to put a lot of focus and attention on another project that I'm trying to get off the ground right now. When we come back, I'm going to tell you right now, I am changing the whole backdrop behind me.
Okay.
Because I'm going to turn my little recording space into my other creative workspace. So nice. Things are going to be changed around, and I'll come up with something different when we return.
Okay.
But yeah, I was like, this is a little weird. Told my daughter, like, we're not recording this weekend. And she was like, what? And I was like, because we're recording on Thursday night, thanks to my crazy work schedule. And I was like, yeah, we're taking a break for a little bit so that Jake can be a dad.
Yeah. Try to see. It'll depend on how much of an asshole my son is. And then we'll see how much he wants to let me come back and all that good stuff. So, But planning on it, we already have a bunch of episodes still planned out. I'm very excited for the ones we want to do when we come back. So it will happen.
I'm very excited for the very first one that we're going to do when we come back. That one we've been talking about that one for a long time. So that'll be neat to finally do.
Yeah. And then we also mentioned at the end of last episode, we're going to be switching up our merch too. So if you want shirts or hoodies or whatever with this logo, the original OG Movie Boners logo, get that in the next, I don't know, but we might change it up probably when we come back. So a month or 2, you probably have. Go ahead and get that, because once it's gone, it's not coming back. We have a whole new things coming when we come back. So do make sure you get that if you want to be cool and in the know in the beginning.
And I will tell you, if you don't have your shit yet, I love wearing my hoodie. Well, not now, because Texas heat is starting to kick in again, so hoodies are put away. But before the heat kicked in, it was a lot of fun walking into work wearing my hoodie and seeing everyone getting the joke when they would see the logo and see the name and all that. That was always good. People coming up and being like, is that really? Yes. It's a podcast, Mike, you perverts. God.
Yeah. What do you think? Bunch of perverts.
God damn.
And then the last thing, which I kind of texted you about.
Dude, you were like...
I wanted to tell you so badly.
I know. So
I have a surprise. It's not really my surprise, but I have been bequeathed with the responsibility of it, I guess.
Okay.
We got a care package, mail call from a fan and friend. And some of it's for you, so I'll be sending it to you, but I'm going to spoil it, and show it to you live on air, so that I can get your reaction and all that good stuff.
Cool. Wow, we got fan mail. This is so weird.
We got fan mail. So from our good buddy and previous benefactor, David from the Wandering Lion Film Fest or Film Studios, he emailed me ages ago about an address, and I kind of forgot that said he was going to send us something. And he sent us a bunch of shit. And there's stuff for Monica and Christy as well.
Oh, dang.
So
thank you, David.
He sent us it's a little poster thing. It has this whole motivational F. Scott Fitzgerald poster. It's very nice, very exciting. It's all about being who you are and starting whenever you want to start being who you are and all that good stuff. Very exciting. Right. But the best part of the whole thing, and actually the first thing that I got, and I was like, this is the best ever. And then I got a bunch of more stuff. He gave us both individual, personal Maltese falcons.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I guess he listened to the episode where he said it was the coolest movie prop ever. And,
holy shit.
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw it. It's the coolest thing ever.
That is fucking badass. Thank you, David. Folks, if you're not watching the YouTube, you need to check out the fucking falcon. That is awesome. Yeah. Oh, man.
It's got a little storage area in the bottom. You could put a little secret treasure in there and stuff.
Look at that.
Yeah, so you will be getting that in the mail.
Hell yeah.
I'm very, very excited. Thank you, David. You are the man, by the way.
It's fantastic. Oh, my God. Well, cheers, David. Thank you. Man, where am I going to put that? You know what? That's probably going to be you know what, David? That's going to be on my new setup, whatever it ends up being. I'm going to include that in the setup. That is badass. Thank you, sir.
Wow. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. He's a cool guy.
He is a cool guy. If you haven't checked out, we haven't been doing the sponsorship with them for a while, but check out Wandering Lion. I know they're not really active right now, but go check out some of their stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. They're busy with other shit too. Dylan's kind of like me. He's having a baby too. But yeah, they are very cool guys and still out there crushing it. So
yep.
Check them out.
Well, that was cool. That was a great surprise. Oh my God.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I need to stop texting you because I'm going to spoil what it is.
You were.
Like, don't talk to me. I'll see you at the episode. Okay, so this episode, we have a whole bunch of shit to say about the whole Mad Max series.
Oh my God.
It's going to be a lot like the Matrix series, but also very different than the Matrix series. I was like, okay, it'll be 4 movies. It's a franchise. It'll just be the same thing. And I was like, no, this is completely different.
Oh my God. So like I told you before we started to record, I prepped it. I got ready. I had my notebook all ready. All excited. Like, all right, Mad Max, here we go. I started making notes. And then I found myself, there is something about all 4 of the movies, honestly. I'm telling you right now, I love all 4 of them. They're awesome. There's one that I don't love as much, but I still love all 4. But I get sucked into the story, and I get sucked into just the imagery, the cinematography, all of it is like, this is too cool to watch. Yeah. And like try to write notes and distract myself from the story. I just can't do it. I get that way when I watch a lot of Arnold movies where it's like, I'll put this in the background and it'll be fine. I'll go and do stuff around the house. And I'm like, no, you're going to sit your ass down. You're going to watch it. You're going to love it. Like the little kid that's still inside you, Right. I love Mad Max. And I was trying to remember, when did I start? Because I did not grow up watching Mad Max.
Yeah, I didn't either. And I don't know exactly when I found it. It may have been like college-ish age, I guess.
Yeah, I don't. Late. I think
I just remember it being like weird and gritty and different than anything I'd seen before.
Right. I want to say I really started watching Mad Max right around the time I got married, which was a long time ago, folks.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago. Maybe right around that time, maybe a little bit
It's like
before I got married.
early 2000s.
Yeah, I got married in 2006.
Yeah.
Just to date myself. Yeah.
We're old men at this point.
Right. Well, when you have an almost 13-year-old child, you're like, yeah, I'm an old man. And she was giving me shit today. We were doing a whole like, what can I do that you can't? Because my daughter has decided she has a life calling. Are you ready for this? And Jake, I hope your child gets this calling as well, because it's funny as hell.
Very excited to hear it. Yes.
My daughter's life calling is to beat me at something. Okay. Like any kind of game, any kind of like arm wrestling, anything. She's like, I just want to beat you. Just let me win. And I'm like, that's not how this works. So we were in the car earlier and just listing stuff that like we can do that the other can't. And my daughter had a funny one where she goes, Dad, I can sit on the floor and get up just fine.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I can get up. She goes, Dad, you groan.
Without grunting.
Yeah, she was like, you make old man sounds when you're getting out of like.
Oh no,
you're a little shit, man. Yeah, I love you. It's like that's fucked up.
Yeah, you can't drive. You're gonna walk home.
Right. Oh, I was like, I can drive wherever I want. She's like, I'm younger than you. I'm gonna live longer. I'm like, oh.
She strikes that knife deep.
Like, I get it. She did throw. Yeah. She was like, I don't have to pay taxes yet. I don't have to do that. No. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going to be a dictator. I'm like, if I'm paying taxes, you're fucking paying taxes. Give me your ice cream.
Right. Parent tax is a thing, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I watched, just to bring it back around to Mad Max somehow. I want to say it was just before I got married. I remember, like, because I always loved Lethal Weapon. I grew up loving Mel Gibson.
Yeah, for sure.
But I never watched Mad Max until, like, out of high school. And I remember my dad always telling me, oh, you got to watch Mad Max. How have you not watched Mad Max yet? I'm like, I don't know. How have I not watched Mad Max, Dad? You taught me all of this.
Right. It's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was weird. That's kind of similar to me. I didn't find it until later in life, and I already knew all about it and loved Mel Gibson's movies. So it was news to me reading up on it, about like the history of it and how it was created in Australia, and it was super low budget, and it didn't even like really get released very widely in the States. Yeah. So when they made Mad Max 2, they couldn't call it Mad Max 2 because they would confuse everybody.
No one knew there was a Mad Max 1.
So they called it The Road Warrior in the United States and kind of pretended like it was an original movie. And I was like, this is crazy. And nobody knew who Mel Gibson was at that point because it was so early that he wasn't even in the trailers, really. They just kind of like focused on the action and didn't put him on the posters or anything. I was like, this is crazy. It's not the movie I thought it would be. Really.
Right. But they're so cool. I've realized something. So watching all four, I really love that first one is so unique for being post-apocalyptic, like this world gone to shit kind of look, because it doesn't look like the world's gone to shit yet, but it does such a great job of kind of being that introduction of, oh no, the world is going this direction. Yeah. This is just before it all burns up. Yeah. I really like that look, and I really like that idea and approach to showing post-apocalyptic world and this like desecrated wasteland. I really like how George Miller did this.
Yeah,
I think
it's really just like on the cusp of being apocalyptic, where grass is still green. There's not a lot of people around, but there's society for the most part.
They still have society. Buildings. There's still like the Justice Hall. There's still homes. There's still,
cops and stuff. Yeah,
you can still see the barter system is kind of going into play because currency isn't really a thing anymore. Like they give you a lot of these little building blocks for what's coming, and then when we got the second one, then it's like, oh no, the world's gone to shit. Here we go.
Yeah,
but I really like that first one. I think the creativity of it and just that first stepping stone into showing this world. And I get that a lot of it was not necessarily purposeful. It was because they didn't have enough money for like to be able to create or film in these like Australian deserts.
Yeah.
But I'm
Like
kind of glad they didn't have that.
We can't pay a bunch of extras. So let's just say it's after an apocalypse and there's not that many people around.
Right. But I think it works to the advantage. And I think it really, especially when you watch all four back to back, I think it really gives a little extra gravity to Max as a character.
It's an origin story.
Yeah.
It's a very good origin story where he's not Mad Max for most of the movie. He's a guy with his family that wears khakis and tucks his shirt in. Like, he's a normal dude. And I was watching it, I was like, this is not Mad Max. He's tucking his shirt in.
Right.
But it is definitely an origin story where he's what things along his path led him to this place. And it's also the very beginning of the apocalypse, like you said. And it's kind of weird to watch it now because the joke for the last 2 years, we've been in a pandemic. We have prices going up for the last 2 years. Gas was at like under $2 in like 2 years ago. And now it's like $6 in some places. So side note to that, I was editing the intro for the stunts episode last week. And I used that clip from Hooper from the 70s. And I put my face in my hands because gas was like 50 cents a gallon. And I was like, oh my God.
Why?
Yeah. It was the saddest thing. But that's kind of the thing that I do. I love movies. And so when I have something in real life that reminds me of a movie, I'm like, I could be distraught about gas prices. But what I'm really doing is being like, oh, you know, it's a cool movie, Mad Max. I should have watched that again. I did the same thing when Russia invaded Ukraine. I wasn't like, oh, this is terrible. I was like, you know, it's a cool movie, Red Dawn. Let's watch Red Dawn when we get home.
I watched Air Force One.
That's what we do. We are weird.
Yeah, watching the Mad Max series, it's so funny because since the pandemic started in early 2020, there's been like this ongoing joke of when do we just throw caution to the wind and go full Mad Max? Like that's been a joke for 2 years now.
Yeah. And do we slowly start dressing that way, or do you just decide one day, fuck it, I'm going to cut the butt out of all my pants and let my ass cheeks hang out.
I need black leather. I'm going to show my ass cheeks, and I need a fucking Thunderdome. 2 men in, 1 man out. Like, that's the rule.
Yeah, it's a great rule.
It's Tina Turner.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you're saying. And I think that I think that Mad Max is such a unique apocalyptic aesthetic that is so great. Well, and it's not just the sand, it's not just the outfits, it's not just the cars, although that's a big part of it. It's just the whole thing, like down to the names, like the credits to a Mad Max movie. People have the weirdest names, and I'm like, this is so different and cool.
They have one of the worst names, and it makes me laugh every time. So I'm like, what the fuck? Well, there's a couple. Unfortunately, the main villain in the first one, his name also makes me laugh because he's Toe Cutter. Yeah. And I'm like, for being the leader of this rapey, like super ultra violent biker gang, your name's Toe Cutter. It's kind of like Taserface from Guardians, you know, where you're like, okay, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
And then the other name that makes me laugh every time, and that's because I may be in my mid 30s, but I will always laugh at like stupid possible innuendo names. So every time that Master Blaster and Thunderdome, like every time they say their names together, I giggle. I always feel like Joey from Friends when they're at the like conference, and every time that Ross is giving a speech and he says Homo erectus. Like I'm watching Thunderdome and they're like, it's Master Blaster, and I'm like,
yeah, you're not wrong.
I'm like, yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, some of the names are bad.
But like, You forgive it. Like it's not bad
Oh,
in like a B movie
100%.
way. It's just like everything in that world is so either literal or childlike. A lot of like languages and things that people say, the way they talk to each other, they're not. I guess they're not educated or they haven't been raised by parents, and so they just kind of talk in a weird way. And so they just call things what they are, or what they look like, or what they want to be. I'm going to be master. You be blaster. We'll be master blaster together, and that will be our whole thing.
You can't say it like that.
I'm going to be the master, though. Okay, you're the blaster.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
You're going to be the jacked muscle of the group, so that's good.
Yeah, but I take 2 arrows to the chest. Spoiler.
Spoiler, by the way.
Oh yeah, folks. If you haven't checked out our deep dives, why not? They're great. But we spoiled the shit out of these. So
it's a movie from 1979. You should have seen it by now. If you haven't, go see it right now. Drop everything that you're doing and watch all 4 Mad Max movies.
Now, Master Blaster doesn't show up until the 3rd one, but
yeah,
you should watch all 3 because the original trilogy is great and Fury Road is obviously incredible. I know Jake and I are both stoked to get to that one.
Oh my god.
It's weird when a 4th installment / reboot / requel, sequel, whatever you want to call it, is like, nope, that's the masterpiece. That's what all this has been aspiring to, and that's the one.
Yeah. And I think not the story of the movies, like the story the characters are going through, but the story of George Miller and how he made them makes total sense. Like how it just gets better and better and better. And you get to Fury Road. Like in my mind, I've seen Fury Road tons of times because I fucking love it, but I haven't seen it in a minute. And so I was like, I don't need to watch it. I've seen it a bunch. I know all about it. So I just kind of put it on and I was like, oh my God, this movie is so good. I can't believe all the things in it, all the details. I was like, this is so Road Warrior, the second one, is incredible. It's really, really, really good. The first one is good, but it's just starting. It's so low budget. It's just starting. It doesn't really know what it is yet. A lot of the things, like you said, the post-apocalyptic-ness, it wasn't necessarily intentional. It was just kind of a way to get around this story and make it actually kind of make sense. It was creative to make it that way.
Yep.
Road Warrior is the one where it feels like it knows what it is and it knows what it wants to be, and it's the close to the perfect thing that it could be, but it's still rough around the edges. And then Fury Road is, let's take that thing that's great and perfect it on every level.
So big fan of that first one because I like the grittiness. I like that where you can tell how low budget it feels. I always enjoy it when something has like made its mark in cinema history, or made an impact, right? And it's so low budget, it like never had a name to it, and then all of a sudden it's considered like this grand piece of creative whatever. I like it when that happens, and I'm with you. So if I had to put them in order, and normally we save this for like the end, but I will try to put them in order. It would be like Fury Road, Road Warrior. Yeah, I'm counting down. So Fury Road, Road Warrior, Mad Max, and then Thunderdome.
Same for me.
Yeah, I don't think that would be any surprise. But when I watched Road Warrior, I'm watching it this time, and I was like, oh my God, it's exactly what you just said. Where I'm like, this feels like what Fury Road is going to be. It feels like he knew where he wanted to take the character of Max. Mm-hmm. He was just trying to get there. He just needed to work his way. Road Warrior feels like he's ironing out. Like, it's the 2nd or 3rd draft, right? He's just kind of getting it ready. We had no clue what was coming when Fury Road came out.
Right. Yeah, it is. There's so many like hints in Road Warrior or Mad Max 2, whatever you want to call it, that are done again because they were so good, but it just could be, you just needed it. Like the guys strapped to the front of the car. everything about the desert
the
society.
tanker trip, like
Yeah.
chasing the tanker down the desert. It's just so cool. It's so cool. I thought it was, and I know you and I like mentioned it, and we always thank Fury Road when we brought up like the stunts episode, and I know that was kind of a precursor to this one because we brought up Mad Max in the stunts episode. Rewatching all of them, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. Obviously, I've had like my brain turned on to stunts, and I've been like every time I see somebody like go through a door or go through a car or like whatever, I'm thinking about stunts. And so watching it from that perspective, it was so fun. Even the very first one, like the very beginning, that whole long car thing where that guy's driving and they jump through the trailer and burst through the trailer. I was like, that's cool. Like that's a stunt right there. And I was like reading about it. And I was like, there's so many things that were done illegally to make this movie because they didn't have the budget to like shut down streets. They
didn't have the budget. They didn't get the permits. They weren't allowed to film like on the bridge where Johnny's trying to like uncuff himself or get the chain off.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't allowed to film there, but they did it. So when you watch it and he looks like he's hurrying it, it's not because that's the script. He was hurrying it because they were like, you have to get this take now so we don't get arrested. Go.
Yeah, and that's part of what I love about the first one is how creative. That's why I love old movies, especially like early on, because they had to get so creative with practical effects, with timing, with editing, with just camera trickery to get things to tell the story. And it tells a very interesting story, a very like not very violent, but pretty violent story without like any like significant effects, any significant support from any like movie production companies. It's a very independent movie made in Australia, made for like low budget. And then it was so cool that it became incredibly successful. Like they did such a good job, and they tapped into something that it became so successful. It was the most profitable independent film until 1999 when Blair Witch Project outgrossed it, which is insane to me.
Which I still think like Blair Witch may have outgrossed it, but there was so much weird hype when Blair Witch came out because I give the filmmakers a lot of credit, and I don't hate Blair Witch at all.
Yeah.
Primarily because I'm like, they did what like H.G. Wells did back with the War of the Worlds on the radio.
True.
Like they tricked so many people into thinking that this was real. And then the cast had to come out and be like, no, we're doing other stuff. We're alive. We didn't die in a cabin. But
it was also like 1999. The internet was like starting to be a thing.
Oh, man.
People didn't know not to trust the things you read on the internet.
Y2K was a thing, so everyone was hyper like sensitive and crazed. Wait a minute, that was not 2022, right?
The more things change, the more things stay the same.
Right. But in terms of just like, I think Mad Max is a better movie. And obviously they're different genres, but I think even with the crazy low budget and even just everything about Mad Max, that first one, is better to me than what Blair Witch did. So when I saw that Blair Witch outgrossed it and took that record, I was kind of bummed.
Yeah.
But then I had that thought of like, yeah, they may have won the box office number, but I think Mad Max is gonna win the like longevity record, like the
it will stand the test of time.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's become a classic already, which is it has this like Mad Max has this weird niche where it's a classic, but it's like in this weird sci-fi subgenre, kind of like the first Blade Runner was for a long time, where only very specific people loved it. And I think that with Fury Road and with Blade Runner 2049, both of those things were elevated more mainstream. So it's kind of a weird comparison. But
I kind of feel
ballpark.
I would put especially that first Mad Max, kind of in the same like category, subcategory, whatever, as like the first Evil Dead did, or having that kind of impact. Where the first Evil Dead is, it was so low budget to the point where they kept running out of money trying to film it. That's why when you watch the movie, their hairstyles and outfits change throughout the film because they had to stop, restart when they raised a little more cash, and then like. Mm-hmm. I compare the two. Well, I don't want to say compare the two, but I put them both in kind of the same like category or mindset, whatever, of solo budget. They have cult followings. They're huge, massive cult films, but in a mainstream way where they've had such an impact on whether it's the science fiction aspect, which it's kind of weird to say Mad Max is sci-fi, but it is with some of the weird shit they do. But like Evil Dead also had crazy cult following, but they've made such a huge impact, not just in these specific genres, but in filmmaking in general and just being creative in general, that it's really cool to see. And I like being a fan of both because I'm like, you get a little sense of pride almost where you're like, I'm part of that fan base. And that you think it's something cool, like exclusive, but then you find out like, oh no, everyone loves this. Okay. I get it.
It's kind of a fun illusion to think that it's a small club when it's a pretty big club.
It's a pretty big club, and it's only gotten bigger as time has gone by, which is awesome. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. And it's interesting to compare Evil Dead to Mad Max. Mad Max is an action series mostly, but especially those first couple, there's a lot of horror elements to them. Like there's some terrifying parts where these monsters or toe cutter or whoever is chasing you, and they get pretty scary for sure. So horror is part of it, but I think I gravitated towards it because, and I was surprised and not surprised to hear George Miller talk about this, where Mad Max is kind of a retelling of classic Western tropes, or it's a Western film, like a cowboy film in new clothes, he says. And so if you replace the motorcycles and cars with horses, especially that first movie, it's very much a classic revenge tale. And then the second movie where he has like the kids, and the second and third movie, both of them, he plays like kind of a surrogate father. Like Mad Max is always like that traveling gunfighter, like Shane or whoever.
They also call him around. They even call him in Thunderdome the man with no name. Like that cracks me up. Where you're like, oh, it's a weird sci-fi action-y Western. Like it takes
kind of like Star Wars.
Kind of like Star Wars. I say
not Star Wars today, kids. If you are a Star Wars fan today, I'm talking about the Wild West of Star Wars in the 70s when it was just this random space Western that came out.
Right. It totally makes sense that it would be shot as kind of an updated Western. I also really like that they don't give actual dates, although George Miller did spoil the actual dates for it, but we're going to ignore that.
Because I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching it because it reminded me of the episode we did a little bit ago about dating movies and the movies set in 2022. I was like, this still works. Like, and there's not even like technology really that you could really tell when it should be.
Well, because I think I love, and you and I have talked about this, whether it was with the original Star Wars trilogy or, well, we'll stick with that, where it's like, it's futuristic, but everything's so worn out. Everything is, you have to just kind of improvise how you're going to fix problems, how you're going to be a mechanic. What do you do when you don't actually know?
Especially in the apocalypse when they're not making new stuff.
Right. So it's nice not seeing smartphones or Bluetooth crap anymore. Now it's still like, we don't even have cell phones because there's no power to even have a cell tower. Like, that makes sense. Everything's off of gasoline or some kind of fuel, but that's scarce. Water's scarce. And then you start thinking like, well, some elements from Mad Max feel like they're happening today. Oh shit.
And that's the interesting thing where Mad Max does such interesting things with the apocalyptic genre. where it does things that I think are more realistic than a lot of movies do,
Yeah.
which are things like you don't see a lot of movies where people just start using bows and arrows like they do in Road Warrior, and I love how in Road Warrior they don't have a lot of guns. They have guns, but they don't have a lot of ammunition, and ammunition takes a lot of time and materials and stuff to manufacture. Guns break, parts break, so you have to do a lot of things in order to fix those. So it makes sense that you would use bows and arrows and crossbows and stuff, which are much more like serviceable. You could create that out of nothing. You could fix that on the fly. So I like those kinds of things where it makes a lot of sense. But Mad Max is also very focused on people loving cars and loving driving, and to the extent that they love cars and driving more than anything else, depending on what movie you're watching.
Well,
if you're
it's like-
watching Thunderdome, they don't drive for most of the movie, which is my only main complaint, because that's Mad Max for me.
Well, I mean, his
I love
car
the drive.
has been like impounded, kind of. It is weird watching Thunderdome, and there's not like crazy car chases and like crazy car explosions, but their obsession with the cars, their obsession with it makes sense in this story.
Yeah.
Because everyone's constantly on the move. If you're not on the move, that means you've kind of made peace with you're eventually just going to die.
Right.
If you're on the move, you're still going.
A nomadic lifestyle, which has throughout history has been a very popular thing for humans to do, or tribes of humans to do.
So it makes sense to me that they would put so much in the vehicles. For being like someone who doesn't give a fuck about cars at all, like I just does it get me from A to B? Yep, cool.
Yeah,
like
does it not break? That's the only thing I want.
I'm like, is it safe to have my kid in? Yep. Okay. A to B? Yep. All right. Is it going to break on me for like a while? No. All right, we're good. Like, I don't care. But I also I'm not trying to drive across wastelands just constantly in search of food or search of, any kind of nourishment, really. I really like the mentality that everybody has in the Mad Max franchise, where it's like no one's on the move to find I just lost the word, like the perfect paradise. No one's going after this,
utopia.
Thank you. This rumored utopia. It's just, no, we have to move or we die.
Yeah.
We're going to encounter like bad people along the way, but I got to keep going. You just have to constantly be on the move, because the whole game is, how do I survive a post-apocalyptic world where everything's dried up? The deserts have really run over. And I like that it's not the usual apocalypse take where like the entire world blew up. It's just, there was war. There was like these crazy shortages that led, but it's not, the entire planet died. It's just people are scattered. You don't know who's around, who's not. We're all scattered. And it only takes place in Australia, so who knows what happened on the other side of the world. So
Right. They don't really have the resources to ship a boat, captain a boat across the ocean, or a plane, let alone a plane.
But and I think that first one is also interesting. When you read like the synopsis, or even you and I talking about it's a really good classic revenge tale. But there's nothing revenge tale about it until like the last 20 minutes of the film, half hour of the film. Like the rest is literally just, how do we avoid this biker gang that is hunting down the officer that was responsible for killing one of their members? Like,
it shocked me the first time I saw it, because you'd always heard of what Mad Max is, and you mostly hear about what Road Warrior is, because you didn't really know what Mad Max was. And it always shocked me when I watched it, and most of the movie is just like a cop movie. It's these cops chasing this biker gang, and they're battling with each other, and you wouldn't really know that it's an apocalyptic movie if you didn't have the narration at the beginning telling you that, basically.
Yeah. Fun fact about that first one that I did not know until this week. The biker gang
Mhm.
is pretty much all real members of a real biker gang back in the 70s. They didn't have enough money to hire enough extras for this,
Mm.
so they hired a real gang. And
Yeah.
the extra fun fact on that is they had to, due to no budget, be in costume and carry their prop weapons
Mm.
on their actual motorcycles to drive to and from set every day. They had to have letters from the production company for when they would get pulled over, telling the officers why they were dressed that way
Yeah.
and explaining
What?
they are prop guns, they are not real weapons. Like,
Well, promise I'm not a hooligan with a mohawk. I'm an actor.
right.
I'm an actor this week.
We got hired to be in a movie. And then another thing that I learned, which I was like, oh man, Jake and I would have taken that job immediately.
Mhm.
The extras got paid with beer.
Yeah. That's all we need,
That's
honestly.
I saw that, I was like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's casting agencies in Austin. Maybe I'll drive down there and just be like, you know what? Just give me some beer from St. Arnold
Mhm.
and I'll be good. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. I love the first one so much, especially because of how low budget it is, how they had to do so many things to make it work, and and how it ended up getting made in the first place. That George Miller is this guy that wants to make this movie. He wants to tell this story, and he earns the money to do it by being a surgeon. Like he's an emergency room doctor making money, and uses his knowledge of emergency room like trauma to put in the movie so that the actual like car accidents are accurate and the gore is accurate.
The injuries and all that. Yeah, like that's great. That is commitment, and I commend that a lot. I think that's pretty badass.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm not smart enough to go and be an ER doctor to learn all this.
Yeah.
The 70s were a different time, folks. I don't know if you needed the like decade-long schooling for it, or
That's true. That's true.
I
It
mean,
is a wild
I don't
idea,
know.
though, to go from being a doctor, an emergency room doctor, sounds very legitimate, and like I just want to make this movie, though. Like that's what I really want to do is make this movie.
But you're saving lives. Yeah, but I can make a movie about a post-apocalyptic world where this guy
Yeah,
named Max gets into like crazy shenanigans
yeah.
and has to
His
fight his
wife
way
and
through
kid
it.
get killed, and he's got to
Dude.
go fuck them up.
Okay, so that first Mad Max has some of like the most entertaining shots. A couple of them are those close-ups of the faces where the eyes are like bugged out of the skull.
Yeah.
Love those shots. But there's the shot when the wife and child die.
Mhm.
I actually really like that's an effective shot. It's just a shoe and a ball being thrown down the street
Right.
as the biker gang continues to drive on.
It happens off screen.
It happens off screen, but that's effective.
Mhm.
Rewatching it and then thinking about it of all the times I've watched it, I'm like, you know, you get the point. Like you
Yeah.
don't need to watch them actually get ran down. You get the point pretty quick. And
especially when you see Max running down the street with no shoes on, and you see them like they're blurry blobs laying on the road in front of him, and he's just running as fast as he can. It is very effective.
It's effective. And if there was one thing I think a lot of filmmakers now could take away from George Miller and the Mad Max franchise, but we'll stick with the first one. Well, all four of them, honestly, practical effects are like way cooler. I'm watching all four of them, even Fury Road, which was made in 2015, 2016.
Hold on, let me scroll down. I do have it. I'm not in that spot. 2015. Yeah.
Okay, even 2015, George Miller still used primarily all practical effects. He used some CGI, but it's very minimal.
Yeah.
I think that I love it when film, and you and I have talked about this a lot, sticking with practical effects
Mhm.
lend so much to your story. It gives such a more impact on your audience because your brain can tell when something's real and when it's not,
Mhm.
usually.
Right.
Um,
Well, human beings
and
have
it's,
have like lived for thousands of years knowing what the world looks like, and it's mostly
yeah,
a defense mechanism to understand, what is that grass real? Is there a thing there? Am I going to be killed by that? And so to try to trick somebody and be like, "Oh, this is real," and you're like, "No, it's not. I know it's not. I know the lighting's bad. I know all of this stuff. That CGI is crap."
you can tell.
Even the best, you can tell very quickly that it's not real.
Yeah, especially when they transfer from like the original digital print to
Hmm.
home release. Even on like stream services, you can tell that transition is not as clean. But the practical effects, not just with like the big set pieces of the car crashes and explosions and all that, but filming certain things in a practical way to still have that same impact as if you like just blatantly showed it. And this is also
Hmm.
something you and I have brought up with plenty of other films.
Hmm.
I love that because to me, that is, it's weird to say, but that's thinking outside of the box for these filmmakers
Yeah.
because they're choosing for the most part. I know back in the 70s, it wasn't so much a choice because there were so many limitations, but you're choosing to still be like, you know what? Yeah, I could put a whole digital mat on this, right? I could just,
Hmm.
who cares? We'll do it in post. Okay. But I
Yeah.
think it's more creative and it takes a lot more effort, more quality work when you figure out a way to shoot it practically.
Right.
Have
I
it,
think that I think that human beings are much more willing to forgive when they watch a movie and it's practical and it's not perfect. Obviously, you're still,
yeah,
but you're trying to be creative. I think we're more willing to forgive making a creative story in a creative way through these practical effects and trickery and editing and things like that, then they are willing to forgive CGI, just version of something.
right.
It's simpler. Obviously, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of computing power, but it's not as creative. It's just like kind of a cheat. I think people still feel like that, and they probably will always feel like that. It's not real.
Yeah. And I honestly have nothing really against CGI, especially when it comes to films that have to be heavy CGI use.
Yeah.
I can forgive that. Like really every superhero. I'm a huge comic book fan, huge comic book
Right.
movie fan. Guess what? You kind of have to have CGI heavy worlds for these stories.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to have it just doesn't exist. It
Yeah.
literally does not exist.
They definitely have their place where it is very good to be able to make movies about things that are impossible,
Yeah,
literally impossible to do. That's great that you can make stories and movies about
it
those
is.
things.
And then when there's films where like it's a very real world where you're going to have very real things going on. It is
Hmm.
possible to show this, and the filmmakers decide to like CGI all of it. Yeah, I think audiences, for the most part, are kind of immediately like, "Oh, all
Hmm.
right." But then you see a practical version of it, and audiences tend to be like, "Holy fuck! Did you see
Yeah.
that?" Like,
Yeah. There's no there's no substitute for just strapping a camera on that thing and letting it go
go.
and actually doing it. Like you'll get so many details and things that people can just feel, even though they're not focusing on it, that it all adds up and they can all feel it.
Dude, you brought up that scene in the first Mad Max of the car going through the trailer. You watch that, and
Mhm.
yeah, immediately you and I had the same reaction of like, "Oh shit, I forgot about that." Like,
Yeah.
you see a guy hanging off the side of a car as it's driving over a bridge. You're like, "Oh shit, they hung a guy hanging off of a car driving over a bridge." Like,
Yeah.
I just,
There's a
I
one. There's a scene in the Road Warrior where they like this guy is working on a car. He's underneath it, and they like drop the car
yeah,
on him. And I'm like, I feel like there's a cut there, and I feel like they switched him for a dummy, maybe. But honestly, I don't care because it looks fucking cool.
dude, and it's really quick, and they raise the car immediately. But
Mhm.
you're like, That would, man, have you ever watched movies where you're like, I wonder what that meeting was like with that actor, their manager, their agent, where you're like, you know what we want to do?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to drop a car on you. Not all
Yeah.
the way. We're just going
Not
to
all
have
the
Mel
way.
Gibson like lower the jack down so it sits on you. And then he's going to
Mhm.
raise it right back up a few seconds later. What? I mean, no?
Do I get paid extra for this?
Is this a stunt? Am I a stunt?
Yeah.
Is there a dummy? Tell me there's a dummy.
Yeah.
But even
Not
just
gonna be
being
me.
under the car like that, I mean, that would still be nerve wracking of just like, what if any scenario would go through your head? I would imagine as an extra or actor in general, you would have that thought. The Mad Max movies, all four of them, have many moments in them where I'm like, those actors had to have been reading the script and looked at each other at one point in between takes and been like, are we really? Really? Like we're on
Yeah.
rubber bands. We're gonna bounce around. You're gonna spin me around into the other side of the cage. Yep. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think that I honestly don't know that much about George Miller. He seems like a cool dude. He's old as crap though. I didn't
Yeah,
realize he
yes.
was 77 years old. I saw a thing from Tom Hardy from 2015. He's like, I'm gonna be in 3 more Mad Max movies. I was like, I don't think so, dude.
I know.
George Miller's it's been 8 years, and George Miller's 77. Maybe Warner Brothers or whoever is putting out these movies, but you're not.
Well,
He's
I'm
not.
like, what happened to the Furiosa spinoff that we were supposed to be getting? What's going on with that? And then
Yeah.
like, there is on IMDb an untitled Mad Max project, and I was like, wait a minute, now they're doing another one. It's been like what, 6 years, 7 years, something like
Yeah.
7 years. Yeah, I'm like, guys,
Yeah.
Miller was old when he made Fury Road.
Right.
You might want to get on top of this.
Yeah. Time is of the essence, I would say.
It
But-
turns out that hourglass is winding down.
But to your point, I don't know it because these movies are so different and the things that are in them are so weird and different. I think it's hard to communicate what it is. I think you've
Yeah.
brought it up on the show before how difficult, how Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron like had conflict between each other, but Tom Hardy and George Miller also had conflict between
Yeah.
each other because they had like a lot of they just didn't understand what they were doing, and I think Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy both didn't know what they were doing, what they were making. What is this? And George Miller knew, and obviously he put it together, and they saw it at the end, and they're like, "Oh, I'm very surprised that it's as good as it is." But that's great. But it's so hard to describe this concept of a world with these war boys and random ass things going on, and I think that it's difficult to describe on a script or to just to say what it is.
Yeah, I feel like so I knew about the beef between Hardy and Theron when they made the film, and then I learned about like the beef between George Miller and Tom Hardy after seeing Fury Road. And it's weird watching Fury Road knowing that they didn't get along. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, but they work really well together. So how did they not get along? Like this doesn't make, because they work really well together. Like apparently. And then it was funny kind of seeing, because in the last couple of years, they both, Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy have come out and said exactly what you said, where they're like, we were just so exhausted and confused because you can't properly communicate or understand what the vision actually is for the story until you see the final product. And then you're watching it. And Tom Hardy talked about like watching the final cut and being like, I get it now. And then having to apologize. Yeah. Because he did. He apologized to like George Miller, and I know him and Charlize Theron squash whatever shit they had between each other. Just being like, yeah, we just didn't get it. We had no clue what was going on. And I've thought about that this last week watching these 4 movies and thinking like, did anyone have any clue what they were making? Like the first one is the only one I think that would have been the easiest to communicate what you're looking for.
It's a relatively clear and traditional in general
Yeah.
storyline and story arc.
But that second one and then the Thunderdome one, like
Yeah.
when he goes from being kicked out of Bartertown and finding the small tribe of lost children.
Yeah.
Like even watching it, like I understand how he got to this point.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck did we get to this point? Like,
Yeah.
I find myself still thinking like, wait.
Like, yeah. I was like, I think of Beyond Thunderdome and I'm like, okay, so you're in Bartertown, you're in Thunderdome. The movie's called Beyond Thunderdome, so something comes after this. And then the best parts of the movie is when he leaves Bartertown and he's like exiled to the desert and he ends up finding these essentially lost boys in the oasis out there. But yeah, the whole story about how they've just been there waiting for the captain. What's his name? Captain
Walker. Yeah,
Walker. Captain Walker.
Captain Walker.
Waiting for him to come back or someone to come back, and they tell the story of their. They tell the story of the world they know, like every night, so that they remember it, and through this like. Essentially a TV screen that they've made.
This giant like branch handle thing that looks like a TV screen minus the screen, and they use that to show the different sequences of the like cave painting versions of the history of the world post some world war. They never tell you what kind of war. It was just, hey, there was a war.
Yeah. And most of it is like made up, where it's like, this is the picture of the red the lake of or the river of light or whatever they call it, and it's just a like a picture of these like taillights of these cars going down the road. Right. And it's like, no, that's not what that is at all. You're making up these stories of these places that never existed, and this history that's so random, and trying to describe it as like this I guess that's part of, I think, why I like that part so much, is because it's so much like human history, where they're telling this oral history of humanity and culture and stuff, and it's passed down from generation to generation, but you don't know how much of it's actually real. It's like it could just be made up, it could just be folklore, it could be whatever. You don't know. And so it's so interesting to see that kind of happen in real time, where you actually know what's real and what's not, in a weird way. And Max does as well. Max is like, no, this isn't that. We had cities. That's just a city. There are tons of cities. They're gone now. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, we did have skyscrapers. We did have planes. They did fly. They did all this stuff. Yeah, like Thunderdome it's an interesting third part to a trilogy. Yeah, we'll get to it. But it's an interesting movie, and I enjoy it. I get a big kick out of Thunderdome, but I'm always like, I always have that moment at some point during the movie, and it's always different, where I'm like, do I love this movie? And then it ends, and I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, I enjoy the movie a lot, but I definitely have those moments where I'm like, is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly how I feel. I like it. I like it because it's part of this bigger thing that I like, partly, I think, is part of it. But my main problem with Thunderdome is it does the thing that a lot of movies did in the 80s, where it chooses like trying to invite an audience over what the story is.
Yeah.
So including Tina Turner as like this pop star, that's so random and out of place. She's an interesting character, and Tina Turner does not play her badly, but the fact that she's Tina Turner and you know her and she's a pop star detracts you from it. And the way it's marketed, the tagline for the movie is Max is back. You're like, that's great. There's a third Mad Max movie, and Tina's got him. Well, Tina's not the name of the character. Tina doesn't have him.
Right. In fact,
Queen Entity has him, but you don't know who that is.
But even then, her character, she's an interesting character because she's marketed as like the big baddie.
Mm-hmm.
but she's the least effective big baddie in all 4 films, in my opinion, where she's just
Well,
kind of
the third movie doesn't really have a big baddie
true,
because
but she's kind of, I mean, with that tagline of like
Master Blaster seems like he will be, and
but
then he's not. And then Queen Entity seems like she won't be. She seems friendly, and then she ends up being bad, but she's not that big of a baddie.
She's trying to maintain order in this town that she's like kind of helped raise back up.
Right.
It's an interesting. I mean, the town is powered by pig shit, and hearing them talk about methane cracks me up every time.
Yeah,
because they're pro methane. They're pro like, no, we need more pigs. We need more pig shit to keep everything powered up.
Well, the idea is they've like run out of gasoline, and so they're trying to power things through methane. And they say it's like more powerful than gasoline. And I don't buy it, honestly.
Right. But it cracks me up because I'm like, man, we live in a world where like there's a lot of people out there that hate methane because they're like, it's killing the whole world. And then Thunderdome comes out and it's like, give us more.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't anticipate in the early 2020s they would be taxing people for cow farts because the methane is too high. It's unfortunate.
People, that's real. Yeah, Thunderdome is just, it's an odd little movie. And I think that's why I maintain my fandom of it, because it's so odd. It's the first Mad Max kind of hints at the weird leather outfits, but it's not too crazy.
Right.
The second one,
a biker gang. You expect a biker gang to be in leather outfits.
The second one, they kind of embellish a little bit with the leather outfits, but it's still
a little bit. He's got an assless pants. Dude, assless pants, man. Humongous. Okay, we have to talk about Lord Humongous for a second.
I don't know how we like jumped over the second one. I think because Mad Max, although it has a timeline,
there's not much of a timeline.
You don't have to watch them or it's one of those odd franchises where you could just throw one in and you're not lost.
Yeah.
Like you're fine. You're gonna be all right. I promise.
I feel like the first one is definitely the first one, just because everything's green. It seems early on, but from there, it's interchangeable. It's kind of an anthology. Max is this traveling, he's like the traveling cowboy, traveling gunman that just goes around getting into trouble and saving children.
Yeah, George Miller even said like he's wanted the character of Max to always be that guy where. Yeah, he just moves on to the next adventure, whatever. And you don't need... I like that he's never given Max a deeper backstory. Like, his family died, he snapped, he's kind of been crazed and violent ever since.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. And he has moments where he's got to be the reluctant hero. And then he moves on because he's like, not getting attached to this shit, see ya.
Right.
Like, it makes sense.
Right. And I really enjoy as time goes on. Like obviously after that first one, the first one is just setting the stage. He's a normal guy. His family dies. He kind of has to go a little crazy and then find a way to survive beyond that. But the rest of the movies, the other 3 movies, I love I don't know if you'd call it juxtaposition. That sounds too fancy for me to use, but I think that's right. The conflict between the fact that Max is Mad Max, he's relatively insane, but he's also in a world that is insane. So
everyone is mad.
He might seem like the sane one in a lot of cases where.
And you know what? He does come across as the sane one in the majority of the cases, even in like Thunderdome when he comes across the lost kids.
Yeah.
He's the sane one. He's the one's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. He's like, no, y'all are crazy. You're in an oasis with water. We're just going to live here. It's going to be fine.
Right. Like, don't stop trying to. No, this is good. This is good. But yeah, that second one, Road Warrior. or Mad Max 2, which I think now that it has gained such a like following and popularity,
Now the Mad Max is a
especially
thing.
yeah, and even I mean it was very popular even before Fury Road, but Fury Road did such a great thing where instead of almost turning people off from like the
Mhm.
original trilogy, it like embraced it
Yeah. I
and
think it
made people go back and enjoy it even more.
made people go back and seek it out, and like
Yeah.
I've always heard of it, but I never saw it. Now I want to.
Yeah, just to see how did we end up here. And
Mhm.
Road Warrior is like we both said earlier, man, that is the one where you're like, oh,
Mhm.
this is the foundation. This is where they really like George Miller really saw his vision
Yeah.
and started ironing it out.
Right. Right. He knew I think that he had ideas with the first one. Like he had wanted to make it for a long time.
Yeah.
He's made all that money as a doctor trying to make it, but I think he wasn't fulfilled by it. It wasn't exactly what he wanted. Obviously, when you have limited resources and you can't make it exactly what you want, you're just trying to scrape by. It's never going to be exactly what you want. So Road Warrior is his chance to kind of like not start over, but get closer, another step closer to what you want it to be. And he makes a giant leap towards that.
It's a huge leap.
And it is, I think, so good and so clear what his vision for it is, including the society and the people and the rules and the cars and the outfits and the assless pants and all this stuff. And I was trying to get back to Lord Humongous. So Lord Humongous,
we're trying.
Humongous is actually the hero of the second movie, if you don't know. He is this giant man, and his loyal band of merry men are following him around. And all he wants to do is liberate the gasoline from this tiny hoarding settlement of savages. And he has to take on this merciless Max Rockatansky. What a dick that guy is. And Lord Humongous is just shirtless with a hockey mask, with a bulging vein in his head. You thought I was going to say something else, but his vein in his head is what's bulging. Nothing else. Some other things are also bulging.
The assless
But I love Humongous. Like the way, not just his hockey mask, but like his neck brace, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And then his like Mr. Olympia muscle.
He's one of those guys, especially for the world that Mad Max takes place in. When you see Humongous, you're like, you instantly know you're the bad guy. Like you are the guy.
You don't dress like that unless you are in charge of everything.
Like you are dressed like you know how to fuck someone up.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess with that guy. Just he's super intimidating, and the hockey mask helps with the intimidation. Obviously,
Yeah.
I am still cracking up. You got so mad. Okay, yeah, the oil refinery, the people that are in it, like I don't like them for the majority of the story.
Yeah.
And it's such a like dumb reason. But every time I watch Road Warrior, them in their like white robes and they're like their nice little, we want to have a perfect society, but we're not a perfect society. Like we're still whatever. They're such pretentious like assholes.
Yeah.
That immediately I'm like, I hope one of you at least gets bitch slapped. Like, like someone get hit. Max hit him. Oh, he did. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. And that's why I like Max. I like Mad Max because he just kind of travels around. He kind of finds himself in places. He's not part of it. Like he's never going to be part of it. He never joins anybody's group. He just happens to be there, and they try to get him to do stuff for them in every movie, but he just kind of does his own thing. So I don't fault him for being there with him and helping him out.
No,
but they are kind of dicks.
And he always, even when he like joins, quote unquote, the group or whatever, he's not actually siding with them the majority of the time. He has his own like, it's a deal. I will help you do this, but you have to give me this in return. Otherwise,
Right.
there's no deal. So it's never because it's never a for the cause mentality when it comes to
Right.
Max. It's always a what's in it for me, which normally would not help your title hero character, but it does work for the character of Max because of the world that he's set in, where it really is. You have to figure out your own survival. You can't,
Yeah.
like, this is the world now.
Mm.
And every group that he is forced to help, they usually fall apart pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
And I
almost like
think
Max has a point.
he wouldn't help them, I think, most of the time, except for the kids. So a
Yeah.
thing I was noticing more this time than ever, maybe I have fatherhood on the brain, which is very probable, but
I'd say it's a safe bet.
but I noticed Max is an interesting character because he obviously lost his wife and child in the first movie. That's a big reason why he's gone mad, or allegedly gone mad. But throughout the rest of his time, he travels around and, for the most part, becomes kind of a surrogate father to other children that he comes into contract with. Like,
To at least a couple of them.
the feral child in Road Warrior,
Yeah.
all of those kids in the Oasis in Thunderdome. Like, he just kind of feels a responsibility to help them and ends up saving them in pretty much every movie, I would say.
Yeah. He saves. Come to think of it, I just watched him. I don't think he loses any kids. Well,
Yeah, the ones that I would say that you could
Fury
argue
Road, he loses.
in Fury Road, he definitely has those visions also of these people he has lost or not saved, or the kid, that one girl or whatever that he wasn't able to save. So there are people that he has failed, but that's life, honestly.
Yeah, and he's not super broken up about all of it. It kind of adds fuel to, like, well, maybe not add fuel, but it's like Max has accepted or kind of thinks of it as, I guess, kind of a punishment or whatever. Like, he's got to keep going on knowing that he failed some people, but it's not a punishment that breaks him. It just kind of keeps pushing him forward. So he's like, he grunts most of the time. I mean, Road Warrior, I think he only has like 50 lines total in the whole film.
Yeah. Most of his movies, he has very little dialogue.
Yeah, like the dialogue, which I actually really like. It's weird because normally I'm a big fan of dialogue. So I kind of have to chuckle at myself that I'm a big fan of a franchise where dialogue is not a big deal.
Yeah. But you also like Westerns a lot. And I think this plays into that aesthetic where he's just the strong, silent cowboy that rolls into town, this gunfighter that just kind of like Shane, where he like has this kid that looks up to him, he takes care of him, and then moves on. And the Road Warrior is a lot like the Alamo too, where they have like this city where they're kind of like trying to hold off these attacks from Humongous and all of his marauders, and then Fury Road's kind of like Stagecoach, where they have like all of they're on the run and they're in this trucks and all this stuff, and these guys are trying to catch them and kill them and stuff. So it's that archetype of a hero cowboy. They don't have to say a lot. They do more through action than through words, I think, and it totally works.
I have to correct myself. It's in my notes. I said he had like 50 total lines of dialogue. I am way wrong. In Road Warrior, he has 16.
Oh, wow. That's way less
lines of dialogue, and 2 of them, so you could almost say he actually has 15, but they're counting this line twice, is I only came for gasoline.
Yeah, that's way less. You might be thinking of Fury Road. I think he is a little
Yeah,
more
I think I'm thinking of Fury
normal.
Road, which is
That's
even
only
funny
'cause
to say that he's got like 50 lines because they're usually like,
Yeah. He does
stop
a
it
lot more
over there.
he does a lot more narration in Fury Road, which I
Yeah.
really like. We don't have to talk about Fury Road yet, but Fury Road, yeah, I said Fury Road yet, but I do really like how you get more of an insight into his psyche in Fury Road because he does the narration. He talks about what he's thinking, who he is, like kind of gives you that backstory. So you feel like he is more mad. He's more
Yeah.
crazed or crazy than you do in the other movies. He seems relatively
Well,
normal,
and
honestly.
it also helps that he eats a 2-headed lizard
Yeah,
without cooking. I mean,
it
that
doesn't hurt. Yeah.
you gotta be a little nuts to do that. But we will get to Fury Road. I know, like Jake and I have a lot to say about Fury Road, folks.
Oh
Don't
my God.
worry. Obviously, we have a lot to say about all of them. I love in the second one, in the Road Warrior, I love like the whole thing with the music box. I think is just a nice little touch. I like that the music box is gone. It's literally just the sound piece that he's got. I love that little detail. I think it adds more weight to the state of the world around them. I love the feral kid. It's like a love-hate relationship with this feral kid.
Yeah.
Because he annoys me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, watching that kid chuck that fucking massive boomerang is awesome.
I always laugh because I haven't seen that many. Obviously, this is one of the most successful Australian movies of all time. But to see a kid with a boomerang unironically throwing a boomerang in an Australian movie, it kind of makes me chuckle because I'm like,
yeah,
that's not a thing that like I always thought that was a thing that happened in cartoons more than real life. The boomerangs weren't a real thing that worked.
Not only does he got a boomerang, but it's the same size as the kid, essentially.
Yeah. And it's like metal. It's like has a blade on it. He fucks that girl's face up and then cuts off the guy's fingers. I'm like,
cuts off the dude's fingers.
I'm into this boomerang. It is a legit weapon.
And the kid like grunts and growls the whole time, which leads into a fan theory about Fury Road that got debunked by George Miller, but it's still a fun fan theory about Fury Road.
Oh, the one where they thought that Max in Fury Road was the feral kid from...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his grunting is almost identical. But George Miller came out and was like...
Max's dialogue in Fury Road kind of debunks it on its own.
Right. Well, and then it helps that George Miller came out and was like, no, that's Max. Like,
yeah.
Mel Gibson is old now. He's a little too old for this shit.
Yeah.
Watching Fury Road, I can't imagine Gibson being tied to the front of a car or like having to dive through a tanker truck. And maybe Gibson in the early 90s, hell yeah, he'd do it, but he's old now. Right. Anyways, fucking feral kid. That okay, I'm gonna say it, as much as I love this, if there was ever, let me find the words real quick.
Okay.
All right, I got it. Okay.
I'm breathless with anticipation.
I know. So bear with me.
Okay.
When I was married, my wife hated movies from the 80s for the primary reason of the 80s hairstyles drove her crazy. They were way too distracting for her to like
big hair metal.
Yeah. And I used to always give her shit for it, right? I'm watching Road Warrior.
Feral Kid's hair is as big as he is.
There's Feral Kid's hair, like everyone's hairstyle for the most part.
Yeah.
Plenty of times during that movie and Thunderdome where I'm like,
yeah,
I get it.
Warrior
Those hairstyles are
Tina Turner.
Yeah. Max's hairstyle for 2/3 of Thunderdome is like, dude, this is wild.
Yeah, you were grateful when he gets a cut.
You are. And I'm like, I get it. But the Feral Kid's hairstyle is one of the most distracting entertaining. What the fuck is this kind of movie moment for me? Because you're just like, yeah, his hair is the same size as his whole body.
Right.
It's a fucking mane.
Yeah, he's an interesting kid or an interesting character. He's definitely lives up to being feral, where he's just like this kid that is like a wild animal that doesn't really talk, but takes a shining to Max and follows him around and tries to escape with him on the truck and all this stuff.
And they literally tell him to shoo.
Yeah,
do the whole like shoo, get out.
Yeah, they just kind of tolerate that he's there. Nobody really loves him. Like they're not trying to raise him or anything.
I love the pilot that gets mixed up in all of it, and I always forget that it's this guy, and then I rewatch Mad Max and I go, oh yeah, look at that, it's the train guy from Matrix. Like,
oh yeah,
it's the same actor, and it cracks me up every time because they're so polar opposite.
Yeah, it sure is. That's crazy.
I was like, oh, look at him. He's funny in this movie.
Yeah.
But you see, Jake, he's funny. He's bumbly. He's kind of accident prone. He's kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But the humor he lends to the film works. It's not forced. He doesn't feel completely out of place. It's like, you know, the comedic sidekick done correct. Fuck you, Judge Dredd. It's
oh, I see where you're going, man. I was like, are you trying to dig on the Matrix? I don't understand what you're doing.
Man, you should know by now. I'm going to take any opportunity I have to just
Dredd is fine. Let's move on. So I do like the helicopter guy in Road Warrior for sure, and his whole like arc, and it reminds me of one of my favorite scenes from Road Warrior is where Max has been carrying around this shotgun from the very beginning, this like short sawed-off double barrel shotgun, but doesn't have any ammunition for it, and so they end up finding him and the helicopter guy end up finding like one shell. And he pops it in, and I love that because at that point the power dynamic changes. You are excited for him to use it. You're like, okay, that's going to happen. You're going to use it. You only get one chance though, so you can't mess it up. And then when it ends up failing on him and it misfires, it's so anticlimactic, but I love it so much.
It's so, like a. Sorry, go ahead.
Just that whole concept and that whole thing in the world where this stuff feels scarce. Like you get the idea that ammunition is scarce, gasoline is scarce, food and water and everything is scarce. And so it works so well.
I see it. I love that scene. It makes me laugh every time because it's like such an anti-Hollywood moment. Because there's always the trope in Hollywood, especially action films, where you get that one shot, make it count. And it's always the big moment, huge climax. Oh, Road Warrior comes along, you're like, oh my God, he's got the shell that's got to, and then it misfires. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I love that. I think changing things up a little bit, and then it does add to the scarcity and how like you can't really rely on anything in this world at all. And what you do have right now, like Max understands his car's probably going to fail at some point. Or get crashed at some point, and it does.
Right.
Usually pretty quick.
And the thing that you should know, you should be learning now at the point where gasoline is expensive and we're heading into the apocalypse. This is a little history or a educational moment for you.
Jake and I are full of moments for you guys tonight.
An educational moment is gasoline expires. Perfectly good gasoline. You can't just leave it forever. It will expire and stop working. It gets clumpy. It just gets bad. So the fact that all of this stuff in Road Warrior and beyond happened and went downhill so quickly, but gasoline is still good. I find that entertaining as well. Where they can make it work at least until the point where you get to Thunderdome and they have to use pig shit methane. But the fact you need to know gasoline expires.
Well, they've even proven like, the joke is Twinkies will never expire. No, they do.
Yeah.
They get kind of gross, folks. Like
Everything expires.
Everything's got an expiration date. Hate to break it to everyone, but
Entropy.
it does.
Yeah.
Man, that was our downer moment.
Yeah.
Don't trust the world around you. So yeah, Thunderdome comes along.
The other thing I was going to say about Road Warrior, though, we didn't talk at all about the beginning, and I honestly really love the beginning. It might be one of my favorite parts because it's partly out of necessity where not everybody saw Mad Max at this point. They're releasing Road Warrior or Mad Max 2 more worldwide. So they do some recapping, and I really like that. But the way they do it, where it's like a 4:3 screen, everything's kind of tight in as if you're watching it on TV. Kids, back in the day, the TVs and computers and everything was in this 4:3 ratio format where everything was close in. That's what this was like. So it's like watching like an old film reel or some news.
That was such a Uncle Jake is going to teach you.
Gather around the campfire. Gather around the radio for a fireside chat.
Octave, you got real close to the microphone, like.
But I love that because it is for me. I'm old enough to remember what a film reel is, and so or a news reel, and for it to be in that tight format and the audio is recorded in mono, so it just feels. They're going through the events of the first movie. They're going through the events of the world. So it's like the historical, these wars and these gas shortages and all these things have happened. I love that. But I especially love it when they blow it up and it goes full widescreen. The audio comes into stereo all of a sudden. And there's a like jet engine sound, whatever that is. And it is so effective of like, boom, we're in it,
I kind of can't. I had this thought, same opening, where, they're giving you the recap. If you had seen the first one, it's a recap. If you never heard of that first one, it's a backstory, like a prologue backstory. Yeah, just kind of gearing you up for what you're going to see. But you know what it reminded me of? And this will be the only time watching movies that we're going to get this, is when you go to the theater now, I don't know if it's every theater, but like the Cinemark theaters do this thing where you go to the theater and they show you the tiny screen of a film, and they flat out tell you, like, if you're watching a movie like this still, you should probably stop. And I mean, they give you like this whole speech, and as they talk, the screen gets bigger. But the audio, that was the one thing that I really caught on rewatching Road Warrior, because the audio in like the theater when they do that and for Road Warrior are kind of the same idea. Where it starts off so small, so mono, and then as it blows up, the stereo kicks in until it's like completely revealed, and then it's loud and it's cinematic. Yeah. And it was fun watching Road Warrior this week again and just having that thought of like, oh, this is like when I go to the theater now. Like I'm sure it had no bearing on the Cinemark making that decision.
Yeah.
But that would be kind of cool if like the CEO or president of the Cinemark Theater, AMC, whatever, had that thought of like, it would be fun. Let's just copy this because it's effective. And it is. I do like that opening a lot. And I like the black and white stuff that they do with it. Just kind of that old school reel. And it's okay. You didn't have to correct yourself when you said film reel. Kids, movies used to be shot on film.
Well, if your name's Christopher Nolan, it still is.
Right. Well, no, didn't. I think he shot Tenet digitally now. I think.
Oh, did he?
I think he did, but I could be wrong. But yeah, no, it was film.
Yeah. That's what the phrase, we're going to film this.
Yes. That's like, if you look at our logo, those are film reels.
On a projector.
Shine light through the film, and that's how you got your picture.
Lenses. All right, let's move on.
Learning all sorts of shit tonight. Woo!
Yeah. It won't help you when the apocalypse happens, so don't worry about it.
Well, I don't know.
Gasoline expires. That's the thing you need to know.
And you know what? Mad Max might be onto something. Just don't wear assless chaps in leather. That's weird.
I don't know who thinks that's a good idea. If you're if you're a henchman and you get a job and you're issued this uniform, maybe it's his choice. That's a possibility. But I assume this is his uniform. What's his name? Wes or some shit? You are given this uniform. Yeah, Wes the henchman with the pink hair mohawk. He's the henchman for Humongous. You know you're gonna have some wild shit when this jacked dude with no shirt.
I mean, he's a little crazy.
Yeah, you're in for some wild action. But he gives you these pants and you put them on. And you're like, there's a draft in here. And you realize there's no back on your pants. Your butt's hanging out. Who thinks this is a good idea for a job to have this?
But you're skipping another part of the wardrobe decisions in the Mad Max world.
Mm-hmm.
Assless chaps are one thing, right? Like,
yeah.
Why the black leather? Have you ever worn leather on a warm day?
I've worn leather, but I've never been in the desert, and I would never want to be.
Never want to be. We all watch Friends. We know what happens when leather gets like hot and sweaty. It's bad, right?
Yeah.
But I also have to laugh because on top of the assless chaps or underneath the assless chaps, like you're either going commando or
we know Wes is going commando.
But then there's other like characters that are like only wearing like man thongs and some TMI
jock straps.
I like comfort, so thongs are not. I can't imagine that they'd be.
I never needed to know that you don't wear a thong, but I
don't know.
I guess I'm glad I know this.
I just like watching these movies. I was like, man, it's not just that guy that's got the assless chaps and like just showing this ass out. It's like everyone except Max. Max is the only one that stays fully clothed, like in his attire decisions.
Right.
Road Warrior also has those random comical. Well, the one comical like sex scene in it where like the couple's out, right? Isn't it Road Warrior? Yeah.
Yeah. Max is driving and he runs into their tent and like pulls it off. And yeah, there's just a couple having sex inside. And the guy's face is my favorite. I don't even know what the woman looks like because I'm looking at this guy's face and he's just like, what happened? He's so funny. Makes me laugh every time.
Yeah. I always completely forget that's in it because I even like I'm watching the movies and I'm like, oh, I wonder if Monica would get a kick out of this, at least for the action sequences, right?
Yeah.
She might. And then that popped up and I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that. Like you look on IMDb and it's like, you know, they give you the rating reasons, but sex and nudity are never a part of the rating reasons. So you just kind of like, okay, it's got to be appropriate. It says mild, which means someone makes out or whatever. Nope, they're on top of each other. Oh.
Yeah, fully nude, previously in a tent, now in public.
Yeah, no longer. But yeah, the wardrobe decisions in Mad Max, you got to wonder, like, does George Miller like have a thing for dominatrix stuff or BDSM? Like, because that's what the majority of the outfits kind of look like. And it's a lot like the Wachowskis' wardrobe decisions for the Matrix series was. It's all very dominatrix based. It's very like odd decisions for the apocalypse, though, folks. I gotta say, odd decision.
I don't see that becoming the actual aesthetic. As cool as Humongous is, and he is peak apocalypse aesthetic, I don't see that just being the general style. That's a very specific choice for one man.
Yeah, and I also try to figure out like how would those conversations go about in this world? Like whether it's Humongous or if it's like Tina Turner's character Aunt
Auntie Entity.
That one. Like, do you have a meeting with your henchmen and you go, you know what? You're all going to wear leather. It's got to be black. You guys are going to have giant like feathers on poles behind your head.
Right.
I need
attached to your back, like constantly.
Right.
Don't go
Everyone's
through
got
any
to have
small doorways.
spikes or studs on them. Everyone needs this. It's like Hot Topic in the early 2000s was
Yeah.
like
Yeah. This is cool, I promise.
it'll be a thing, I swear, but we gotta wait a few years. All right.
It's definitely not going to stop being cool in about 5 minutes.
I was trying to find like any fun tidbits on the wardrobe decisions.
Yeah.
I can't find any. It's almost like Mad Max is this weird aesthetic where everyone accepts it.
Mhm.
Like, oh, okay, we got black leather in the Australian wasteland.
Yeah.
Good to
I
go.
mean, it's like the Matrix. It just works for that thing.
And it does. It shouldn't.
Weird.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't work at all. But it does.
Yeah.
And then we go to Thunderdome. Do you have any more on Road Warrior?
No, we can move on to Thunderdome.
All right. I feel like we've been bouncing around a bunch.
Yeah, there's no
I'm just
telling what we're gonna do.
I'm just excited to get to Fury Road.
I am too. I'm trying
I'm
to
excited
move it
for
along.
all four of them. I love all of these movies, but Fury Road is just something special.
The wild thing about Thunderdome is it's PG-13 partly, where I'm not a giant stickler, but I do feel like partly because I'm already aware of the fact that Tina Turner is in it. They're using her name. They're trying to bring a more broad audience. So to also make it PG-13 feels like more of that. And so that makes me less like excited, I guess.
The fact that they put so much around Tina Turner, it almost feels like the PG-13 was a part of her contract. Now, I did try to find like confirmation of that, but there's really not. So I'm just talking out of my ass. But my opinion is, she had a say of like, I'll do the movie, but I want to make sure my fan base can come and see it, or kids can come and see it. Right. I don't want to be this one. You know, I'm already playing this kind of corrupted leader of this town. Yeah. Who justice system is a cage match to the death.
Yeah, you don't want to be, if you're a pop star of that time, you don't want to find yourself in a violent post-apocalyptic world that's too crazy. You kind of want to control that.
I will give some credit. She doesn't sing at any point in the film. So I give credit that because usually when like a musician guest stars in a film,
it's like, oh, she'll do the theme song also.
They're going to sing, whether it's the theme song or they're going to sing in the film or they're going to play in the movie. Yeah. It's kind of nice that Tina Turner doesn't, bust out, keep on, or what is it? Rolling Down the River or whatever.
I have no idea any of her songs.
But
I totally agree with you. I also am very glad that doesn't happen.
I'm not going to lie. The first time I sat down to watch Thunderdome, I remember mentally preparing myself for her to bust out into song at some point. And I was like, it's going to annoy you. Just what? Like, it won't be for the whole film. Yeah. And then it never happened. I was like, okay, we're good with that. We're good with this. We're good with this. All right.
Yeah. It also, if you're going to have a famous person sing a movie theme song, you're never going to be as good as Seal singing Kiss from a Rose in Batman versus Robin. You're just never going to be on that level. That is the best of all time. The GOAT.
Wow.
Hot take. Oh no. Let's move on.
I can't believe you are saying Seal's Kiss from a Rose is better than like
name one better song.
Skyfall.
Well, that doesn't count. I didn't know who Adele was until then.
Boom!
An actual musical star. Name an Adele song after Skyfall or before Skyfall.
Dude, like every one of her songs?
That doesn't count. Name one. You don't know any of them.
I'm drawing a blank, but I blame the beer.
You're like, I'm sure she's made music. Any of her songs.
How do you not know Adele music? You know Adele music.
I know one song, but I'm not going to give it to you.
Way more than just one. If you heard some of her music, you'd be like, oh, she did that one. Oh, she does that one too?
I know
shit, she
Skyfall, and I know I know Hello, that one song she did.
Okay, well, that's 2. You just proved yourself wrong.
Skyfall and Hello, those are the only 2 songs. And I wasn't going to give you Hello to not prove you right that you don't know another song.
Well, I just said Rolling in the Deep.
I don't know what that is. Yeah, you might have.
If you heard it, you would know it. If you heard Rolling in the People, help me out. Bitch slap. You know what? At Jake with
At
all
me.
Adele's hits.
Okay.
How do you not know? Man.
I listen to Seal exclusively, is what I'm saying.
Name any other song by Seal.
Okay, I don't know any other Seal songs. Because Kiss from a Rose is the best one. So why would I bother? I feel like I do know 1 or 2 other Seal songs, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Because I just started this bit and I don't know how to get out of it.
I don't even I'm trying to remember how that song goes. Come on.
You know.
You're just scatting now. You don't even know.
All right, let's move on.
We're sorry, everyone.
A little sidetracked.
I don't know how we get out of this hole we just dug.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know how to get out of this bit. So Tina Turner is in Thunderdome.
Oh, yeah, Tina Turner is in Thunderdome.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves. I also want to know, and it's not just with Thunderdome, but there's been a handful of movies with kind of these sub societies or whatever, where they all chant a certain law or philosophy, whatever, and they do it in Thunderdome of the 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. And I find myself also thinking, when did that become a thing?
Yeah.
Who did she sit down with her team and tell them, you go around and you tell everyone,
right?
This is what we do. This is our ritual now.
Yeah. Or did that guy in the with the baton and the tuxedo and the cape and everything, he's like, okay, repeat after me. And then after a few months, they didn't have to say repeat after me. They just started doing that.
Or was it the slow clap guy who's not in Thunderdome, but that principal where one day he was like, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. And people thought, oh, that's cool.
No. So the thing is, I do kind of think it could be organic because I have been, and I know you have been, to wrestling matches. And
I knew you were going to bring this up.
Thunderdome reminds me very much of a WWE, WWF, any sort of wrestling match. And that is a thing that happens. People will chant. People will count. The fact that people are counting in Thunderdome, I'm like, that is absolutely a wrestling thing.
You know what? I agree with you. Primarily, and pretty much only based on the fact that I have fallen into that mindset.
Yeah.
You were there to watch it happen to me. Yeah. I went to a wrestling show with you and Christy, and I was having a blast people watching. Dude.
Yeah. It takes, if you heard 1 or 2 people chant something, you start immediately doing it.
We heard the countdown where, they get out of the pen at 2 and the whole crowd yells 2. I think I heard it twice, maybe even once, and had that thing in my brain click where it was like, oh, you're going to do that.
This is a thing we're doing now.
We're doing it. You better do it. And I did it. And I remember you and Christy got a big kick out of it. I know Christy was like, yes.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So I'll agree with you on that one.
The part where Blaster is doing the chops. He's chopping Max in the chest, and everybody on the outside is counting 1, 2. I was like, wrestling fans count chops constantly. This is a wrestling movie.
Dude, you know what move in that cage fight is? I'm like, this is fucking brutal. And it has nothing to do with blood. It's just blunt force trauma. Is Blaster standing on top of Max and jumping on him, using the bands as the pulley system, and then just falling on him every time. I'm like, I mean, there's no blood.
Ouch.
But wow, that would.
Well, he's a big guy.
That's kid. A big guy. That's a lot of human. that's
Yeah.
like all of his weight is falling on you repeatedly.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
oof, oof, oof.
Yeah. Big oof.
Like, I don't know how you would breathe after that. Oof.
Yeah, when they throw them in there and they're like, you need to get to the weapons, and then there's no other rules. You just kill each other. That's all you have to do. When I first saw it, I remember I was like, okay, so they're up on the ceiling. They're on these like ropes, so the weapons must be on the ground. And then they like do all the trapeze rubber band action that happens. And they get to the ground. I'm like, okay, go get a weapon. And they don't. I'm like, where the heck are all these weapons? And then they like have to like catapult them up to the ceiling to find one and grab one. And I was like, this is awesome. Like I was so excited for this. And the fact that you kind of end up with random shit, like you either get a hammer or an axe, or Max gets that chainsaw, which seems like it'd be perfect. Especially
but it doesn't
in a society,
start all that well.
yeah, in a society that loves gasoline and motors and things like that, you're like, this will be perfect. And then they put like a tiny bit of gasoline in it, and it lasts for 2 seconds. So it's so fun how that goes from being like a liability where he can't get it started, and then he gets it started and he's like, this is great, I'm gonna, he like the tides turn, and then and then it runs out of gas, and he like all of a sudden is useless again. That I love that sequence. It's a really fun sequence.
Now I have to, I always forget that the whole cage match, the whole first part of Thunderdome, it all happens because of a political assassination plot.
Yeah, you don't expect that
against Master. If you haven't watched Thunderdome, just Google Master Blaster, Mad Max. I mean, if you only Google Master Blaster, you're probably going to get something different.
No telling what you're going to get. I'm doing it right now just to see.
Oh no!
I get a bunch of like dumb like parts. It's like, oh, and there's a oh wait, if you go to images, you see Master Blaster right away. There's also a Stevie Wonder song called Master Blaster Jammin'. Oh, there's Stevie Wonder with his glasses. Oh, that's hilarious. Sure, he's not as good as Steel.
Oh my god!
Anyway, Master Blaster.
I'm gonna have to listen to that. But Master Blaster is just Google it. And if you can find a short clip of Master talking, it might be some of the most infuriating dialogue. But then at the same time, it doesn't infuriate me anymore. Because I laugh at it now, but that's because I'm a giant fan of The Office. And bear with me again.
Okay.
Do you remember the episode where Kevin decides to try and shorten all of his sentences to save time?
And Holly thinks he's mentally disabled.
Yeah. So when Master talks, you have to think of Kevin shortening his words to save time, but it just wastes so much and makes everything
trying
so frustrating.
To be efficient, but then he has to re-explain everything that he's saying.
That's exactly how Master talks. Like that's how it is. So it's infuriating until I remember that's how Kevin tries to talk in one episode, and I go, okay, we're okay. We're okay. Everyone around him understands, like, you're an idiot. Now, what I really don't understand is how Master goes from being this, like, grimy, actually has all the power, not bad guy, but kind of a dickhead, to, like...
There's a power struggle between him and Anti-Entity. Where he's, like... He seems to control the methane factory. And so he puts it any sign of any sign of like insubordination. He's like, I'm putting an embargo on it, shutting the whole system down until you apologize, say I run everything, all this stuff.
And I mean, it's a power move. He's a dickhead.
Yeah.
But it's a power move that's effective. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah. And he certainly runs more important systems than she does. She's just like the queen of the city, which she doesn't
She's
do
like
much.
the face. She's whatever.
She shows up to Thunderdome and waves and smiles, and that's about it. So
that's fair. And then she tells people, "That is law, traitor." But I always I found myself not just with how did we go from higher political assassination attempt to like lost children in an oasis to war in Bartertown, and then also to how did Master get all like prim proper? Where the fuck did this like tweed suit come from?
Yeah.
And how are him and Max like? Max is saving him now. What the hell?
They're like teaming up. They're on a train together.
Thunderdome is full of moments where you're like, what? Okay.
Yeah. It's wild. It gets pretty wild.
It is wild. But I love the ending of Thunderdome. The whole like final sequence, the chase with the train.
Oh, that's the best part. You watch an hour. Awesome. You watch an hour and 20 minutes, and you are enjoying it. It's a good movie, but there's no cars. Nobody's driving. Nobody's going anywhere. Max is walking in the desert. They're in a town, and Max is walking through the desert. That's all that happens. You get an hour and 20 minutes in. You got 20 minutes left or whatever, and then they get in the cars. Max is on a train. They're driving. I'm like, okay, now it's a Mad Max movie.
You got a guy who can't die. He's been blown up. He's been dropped off of several vehicles at this point, and the fucker is still alive until they like drop him off at the train. But it's like, and even then, I'm still not. I've watched all 4. He doesn't come back. I'm not convinced that guy actually dies.
He could be alive for sure.
Seriously. That whole chase sequence again, where like you're watching Thunderdome, and I do enjoy it. It's full of like just so many odd decisions and storytelling moments. But then that final act comes up with the big chase. You know, we've got Auntie chasing him out because she's like, "You fucked up everything I had."
Yeah, demolished like their whole town.
But then she doesn't kill Max. She's just like, okay, Raggedy Man. And then they turn around and she's like, we will rebuild. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You're like after the worst villain there is.
The kids like escape on the airplane thing and he helps them get away.
But we get our helicopter pilot comes back, but they never actually acknowledge that it's the same guy. You just kind of like, it's assumed the audience understands it's the same dude. He's just a dad now. And they kind of give you a decent time jump where like his kid is like 6 or 7 years old now. You're like, oh, so he had time to like impregnate the chick from the second movie. They had this child. She obviously didn't make it. He's like single dad out in the desert, but he's back. He's got he's got his plane. I always feel bad for his plane because they're like, there's too much weight. Max is just like, all of your shit is gone.
Yeah. like, sorry, gotta take all these kids. Those kids.
But I love that whole ending. And I love Max's like separation. I love how he gives them enough runway space. Just driving that car straight into the like, that's badass.
Yeah, I love Max's like sacrifice ultimately, where he doesn't want to help, but he always ends up choosing to help, I guess.
The Thunderdome, it gets mocked a lot, and I will mock it a lot. I will continue to mock it a lot because it's easy. It's better though than I think it gets credit for. It's still not the best in the series, but it's by far not the it's not a bad movie. It's just it's so weird.
Yeah, it is weird. The whole series in general, we kind of talked about at the beginning, but the first one has to kind of start out at the beginning. The second one is so good. Third one comes back down a little bit just because it's I don't know, it's trying different things. It's just not as good as the first one, and it can't be as good as the last one. Last one's incredible. Yeah. So it just does like this weird motion, but they're all still really good in their own way. And I always appreciate how Thunderdome has just injected itself into the culture. Like people know, if you tell somebody we're going to have a Thunderdome, they know what that means.
Everyone
they know
knows Thunderdome.
2 men enter, 1 man leave. Everybody knows.
Like everyone. Yeah, it's become such a like pop culture like iconic thing. Even if you've never watched the movie,
Yeah.
people might not know that it's 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, but they understand Thunderdome means like, oh, it's a fight. Oh, we're gonna do this. Like
cage
shit
match
is going down, cage match. Which is kind of funny that this like weird just post-apocalyptic film with Tina Turner guest starring
Australian movie from the 80s.
Right, has become this thing. Well, at least one part of this whole movie, because the Thunderdome is honestly, it's. I think it might be less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, like, I was going to say 2, maybe 3 minutes.
It's very short-lived in the film, but it's such a great setup, and it is memorable. I forgot about like the sign they have for it, where it says Thunderdome. That's all lit up, and then it says live. The live cracked me up because it's like, no shit.
Like you're not on television. This isn't like the Tonight Show or something.
Right. But I think it's interesting and kind of telling to the, I guess, popularity or the following for the Mad Max trilogy, the first trilogy. People just know what it is. It gets referenced a lot. You know, we were talking about it earlier in this episode of like the joke for the last 2 years, or one of them has been, when are we just going to go Mad Max on the world? Like, should we get our leather and studs now?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it's maintained. I mean, this was like, it started in 72? 79?
79. Yeah.
Okay, it was 7 years off. But something from 1979 that was so low budget, no one knew of. Mel Gibson didn't even actually like mean to be in the movie. Did you know this?
No.
His sister was auditioning for the film. He just drove her to the audition. He looked all fucked up.
Okay.
And they asked him to come back in a couple weeks later to read. He shows back up, not looking fucked up. And they're like, oh, I guess you can read for this other part.
Why was he fucked up?
I want to say he got in like it was either a car wreck or he got in a fight. It's one of those.
Classic Australian thing to just get in a fight and walk around fucked up.
Kind of makes you think of like that South Park episode about Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that episode?
Fighting around the world.
Fighting around the world.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But that trilogy, it's so cool to me. And it's one of those things of like praising these filmmakers or these artists of like, you took something so odd and original, a different take on this whole genre, and it's become huge. I mean, it's iconic. Who would have thought?
Right.
CJ
right.
Assless chaps were apparently a good choice.
Not a bad choice, that's for sure. And even if it's just for the ventilation for that poor man in the desert.
Just for ventilation.
You might need it. But you're absolutely right. It is iconic. And it's crazy that these 3 movies from the 80s, I mean, 79 is basically the 80s.
Yeah.
3 movies from the 80s became so big. And then it was 30 years before we got Fury Road. And the world had basically not expected any Mad Max thing ever again. Like, it's not like, especially from that creator, like you can expect reboots and things like that to happen. But from the original guy who had this vision in Australia on a low budget to make this movie, to come back in 2015 and make Fury Road, and to make it everything that it could possibly be, to make it perfect, honestly, is incredible. And the crazy thing about Fury Road to me, especially, we rag on Warner Brothers a lot because
Yeah.
we love DC stuff and they screw it up DC stuff a lot. But it's crazy to me. They made Fury Road. They edited both a PG-13 and an R-rated version. And then after seeing the response to the R-rated version, actually had the balls to release the R-rated version and understanding that they are going to risk the box office and the audience and all the stuff that comes with an R rating. A lot of studios try to avoid that, but I commend them for actually doing it and making this movie the way that it is. It's so good.
It is so good, and I was going to bring that up too, of Warner Brothers' decision making on this film, because it's so anti what we've become used to hearing about Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to like, God, they're so fucked up. Because even with some DC projects, Warner Brothers is all for like, oh no, this is your project, this is your thing, we're out of the way, like we're not doing anything. Do you, we're cool. And then we get other DC projects that we're like super passionate about, and Warner Brothers is like, hell no, you don't do that. Fucking, they're such a bipolar company these days. But
yeah,
them going for the R rating over the PG-13, shocking. And then I had to chuckle because at the same time they told Miller not to release his original version of it, which was the black and chrome version, or black and white.
Yeah.
But then they told him, oh, we'll just release that version when we release the Blu-ray. Like, we'll just do that. It won't be theatrical, but people can have it. Like, well, that's compromise. But
yeah,
this is so goofy that Warner Brothers was all for, like, still embracing the director's vision.
Right.
In the long run, but they don't do that with other guys.
Right. Yeah. And I love, you brought up the black and chrome version. I think both are great and you should watch both and just pick whatever you're in the mood for, or whatever you like more. I love both of them and I love them both in different ways because I've obviously watched the original Fury Road in color, and it's vivid color. It's beautiful the way it's shot.
It's bright.
And I've watched it a lot that way. But once it was out on black and white, I watched that, and it feels like a different movie. You notice different things. You notice different details. Lighting is so much more significant. And so everything about it is kind of like seeing it again for the first time. And it's so exciting. So it's definitely worth it. I love that both are out there. I would rather that than just have one, either one. Yep. I would rather have both. So that's all good in my opinion.
You brought up like the color palette for it. This was a decision by George Miller that I have loved through the original Mad Max trilogy, and especially in Fury Road. Being like a post-apocalyptic film, or just, this kind of genre, they're typically super bleak. They're super like grimy and just, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I love his idea of like, it's going to be really bright. We're going to enhance all the colors that are out there. When you watch Fury Road, you almost feel like the heat coming off of the sand. You feel the heat coming off of the fire and the explosion. The movie feels so fucking hot.
Yeah.
Like from the get-go, you're just like, oh, I immediately feel like I'm in a desert. This is nuts.
Yeah. And it feels so saturated or vivid, like to the point where it almost feels green screen. It feels like a Zack Snyder movie where it feels digital, extra vivid, extra enhanced. And so that's why it's so amazing that it's just primarily 80-90% in camera, like real just lighting or effects, and they just either bumped up color or bumped up whatever. It's not digital, and that's why it feels so crazy. Like the fire and everything feels so orange and bright and hot and all that stuff you said, but it's legit real fire.
Yeah. And that's, oh my God, when I popped Fury Road in again,
Dude, I almost didn't watch it because I was like, I was running out of time. I was like, I've seen it 100 times. I don't need to worry about it. I know the movie. I can talk about it for hours without even seeing it. I put it on because I was like just doing notes, and I was like, I'll watch a couple minutes just to like, refresh, get back in the state of mind. As soon as I watched it, I'm like, this movie is unbelievably good. Like, I cannot believe every single moment is so good. And it's literally a perfect movie.
You and I love the moments where you and I are on like the same page throughout the whole prep time. Like, because if you're new to the show, Jake and I don't really like text each other our thoughts or like notes that we're taking or observations that we're noticing when we're prepping during the week. We save a lot of it for recording, and it always cracks me up when we sit down and we record and you and I are like identical. Okay, we've been on the same page the whole time. Yeah. I pop in Fury Road and I'm like, all right, I'll start it off. Like, I always want to watch him eat the lizard. I don't know why, but I'm always like, I love watching him crunch this thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll see him eat the lizard, and then I'll go and like, I'll make some coffee. I'll get breakfast going, kind of do a few things around the house. Cause I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's a movie you can watch over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then he eats the lizard. He has that freak out moment where he picks his bag up, throws it in the car, and the car just takes off.
Yeah.
And then 10 seconds later, the chase begins.
Right.
And I'm like, I forgot about my cup of coffee for the first few minutes. So it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, it just goes into gear. And I'm like, when it calms down, then I'll go and get my coffee.
Yeah.
And then my brain was like,
it never calms down.
It doesn't calm down. The opening of the movie is pretty much the calmest part of the entire 2-hour film.
Yeah.
Go get your coffee now.
From that point, they are moving constantly. And anytime they stop moving, it's like scary and you're more intense because they're not moving.
Well, and even like when it's not a car chase, so like when they capture Max and he's in Emoton Joe's fortress with the war boys, like that whole thing, it's still so chaotic,
right?
That you're still moving.
Yeah,
there's still a lot going on.
The like culture is moving because you're seeing Immortan Joe, you're seeing all of his like family and all this different people, and they're about to do stuff. They're about to go out on a war party and go to Gas Town and the ammo place, whatever it's called. And so they have plans. They're moving constantly. They're about to set off. So you're just sucked in immediately.
It takes off, and it is loud. And every time I watch it, I'm always like, it's one of those movies where certain scenes will come up, and I have that memory of sitting in the theater and watching it, and I'm just always so glad that I went and saw it in the theater. Yeah. Because I still like when I watch it at home, obviously my TV's not the size of a theater screen.
Right.
That would be badass.
Yeah.
But the size of your house would have to be unreal. And that's just way too much upkeep. But
that's true.
But there are certain parts, and like one of them is in the beginning, and it's him running and latching the chain onto the hook. It's such a split-second shot.
We're like jumps off a cliff in order to grab the hook.
Him going over that cliff. I remember just being like in the theater being, that looks so fucking cool. Like it's so cool. And why would you jump off a cliff like that? And it doesn't work out for him, but you're still like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I love Mad Max Fury Road. That like, I told you earlier, whether we were recording or not, I can't remember, but I sat down, like I got my coffee and I was like, okay, let's do our notes. Like we're good. I did notes on the other 3, not very many, because I just kept getting sucked into it. And I was like, but you've got Fury Road practically memorized.
Yeah.
I took 0 notes.
Yeah.
0. Because the whole time I was just like, I was glued to it again. And it's one of those movies where you're like, I can't look away. If I look away, I miss a part of the chase, and you don't want to miss a part of the chase.
Yeah.
because something is constantly happening. And what you and I have already mentioned, we've been hyper aware of stunts in films since prepping for last week's episode. And so watching like the first 3 Mad Max and being hyper aware of all the stunts in those films, to which there are insane stunts. And then you get to Fury Road and you're like, this is mentally draining. Like, I feel physically exhausted, just not even from the chase, but all these crazy stunts, like the war boys jumping on and off of vehicles. You got the guys on the poles, like, and that's the first 5 minutes of the movie. You're like, what the fuck?
And what am I in for? If this is the very beginning, it's only going to get crazier from here.
It gets crazier.
I had the opposite problem from you, where there's so many details and that I knew about, but it's hard to, like, if you think of Fury Road and you remember it, you're like, oh yeah, I liked it. I like this part. I like this part. But you rewatch it. There's so many details of those things that are so cool and interesting and different and fascinating. Everything we talked about already about George Miller's story is like turned up to 11 in this movie. And so I was pausing it constantly, like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I forgot about Immortan Joe's like chest of armor that is clear and like
it's got like medals all over it, as if he's like some kind of colonel or something.
He's like this old, sick, gross, fat guy, but he's trying to like put on this appearance of strength. So he's like this like plastic see-through armor that has like a 6-pack, and he's like supposed to look jacked on it, but it has like all these medals, like he was a general, or maybe that's why he rose to power in this post-apocalyptic world, is that he had this leadership ability. And he has all of these like family, like sons and stuff, but they're mostly disfigured because who knows, maybe bad genes, maybe incest, maybe whatever. And he has like this women or wives that are like being milked essentially like cattle, like they're collecting milk as sustenance because they're in the desert. There's not a lot of food and stuff. So they're like not using it for the babies so much. They're using it for these adult, giant, humongous guys who are using it as protein.
Well,
and there's a million things like that. And I'm pausing it constantly, taking these notes of, oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I could not pause it. I was like, I think it's one of those movies, and I'm probably always going to do this, where I underestimate how much I actually enjoy the film and how much I just let it completely suck me into that world, into that story. I get such a kick out of, in this post-apocalyptic world where traditions, histories, everything has pretty much gone the way of the world around these characters, where it's all in the wind. Like it's dead.
Yeah.
But I love that Immortan Joe has kind of brought on the Valhalla Norse belief system. So he's built himself as a god-like figure. He's like the savior. He gives and he takes away.
Thor or Odin or whatever.
Yeah, he's got the wives that he wants to like mate with, not out of love, but out of necessity to like
breeding.
Look at my children. Yeah. And they're even called the breeders.
Yeah.
Which always feels gross when they call them that. I'm like,
it does.
Ew. This is ew.
They are women, but damn it.
The whole like the War Boys, watching it this week, I was like, man, I almost feel like Furiosa is known for being the scene stealer in Fury Road. Like,
and it's mostly her story.
Yeah. And Mad Max is just, he happens to be there for the ride.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like the War Boys, for me, steal the show.
Especially Nux, his like redemption arc, essentially.
Yeah.
Where he's such a committed bad guy, goon, and then slowly becomes like a good guy. That's my favorite part too.
I don't want to say like he kind of gets his humanity because he's still like his biggest fault, the War Boys' biggest fault is they have been brainwashed and drugged. I mean, they spray themselves to inhale these fumes. And I was reading about it. They talk about being chrome
Shiny
and all
chrome.
this. Yeah. I guess that's actually Australian slang for like inhalation abuse, like huffing and stuff. That's what they call it. And I was like, oh,
that's interesting.
That kind of makes sense. And it was this whole breakdown of the War Boys are essentially constantly drugged. And when they do that, it gets them even higher. Like it enhances the euphoria so that as they sacrifice themselves in the name of Emoton Joe and go into Valhalla, it's like they've been brainwashed so much. And it's the craziest like cult mentality for me in a film because it doesn't scare me in Fury Road. But it's like, I look at it from the aspect of, especially with Nux kind of coming out of it.
Yeah.
And being like, that's how it's like, he's going through this shit. He's totally in it. And then he's slowly, the farther away from Emoton Joe that he gets, the farther out of this mentality that he goes. He still sacrifices himself, which kind of sucks, but his sacrifice is awesome.
Yeah.
But the War Boys, I get sucked into just watching these guys lose their shit throughout the film. They're insane. They're absolutely insane.
And I love their energy. I love the action. I love their, like you said, their kind of their commitment to Joe and to finding that glory on the Fury Road and to be able to enter Valhalla and all that stuff. And when I always assumed when they like spray that paint on stuff in their mouth, that you are there. There's a drug effect. Like obviously, if you're huffing paint, you're doing that. And so that always seemed like, and that's always a thing that kind of happens in a lot of like ritualistic things like that. There's always oftentimes some sort of like hallucinogenic or drug aspect to it. So that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, their whole style, I always love at the very beginning when they need to like go out on this mission, they go and get the steering wheels, and the steering wheels are all like in this pile. It's like an altar kind of. There's also kind of like an armory where everybody has to go in and grab a steering wheel and then they can go get in their cars. It's like if you have to go to an armory and everybody gets like a gun or something. It's the cars are the thing that are the most important that they have to like keep locked up. It's so crazy.
Yeah, the vehicles are their weapons. They're not just a weapon, but it's their passage to Valhalla, essentially. Like, if that's where they're actually going,
right?
I love that they call themselves like Half-Lives, and then the blood bags are like the full life people. I love how they tattoo the back of Max, explaining, hey, he's a universal donor. He's like, we can use him when we need blood. Watching the blood transfusions in Fury Road is one of the few times in a movie where every time you watch it, you're like, ew.
You have big time tetanus right now, bro.
Yeah, this feels like you are just asking for every disease there possibly is or ever will be. It's so gross.
I love how the whole witness me thing that was like kind of especially a meme when it first came out, but I think it's still is so cool. And I didn't know. So you know how they do this like hand thing above their their head with the fingers?
It's for the V8.
I never knew that until this week. And I was like, oh my God, there's 8 things. It's like a V8 engine. That's brilliant. I can't believe that I didn't get that. I thought it was just like a thing.
Well, it serves as both like the V8, like a symbol for that, but it's Valhalla as well, like because it makes the V, so that's their passage into Valhalla.
Okay.
Or like a symbol of passageway to Valhalla. The witness me. Like I'm always torn by it because it's so. It's an intense concept for these war boys to look at each other and tell them like, "Hey, witness me. I'm about to die. Please witness me."
Yeah.
and then they respond with mediocre, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But it's such a like weird thing for me to watch because at one point I'm like, man, they're giving their lives up for this guy
Mm-hmm.
who's kind of an ugly piece of shit.
Right.
By the way, fun fact, Mountain Joe is played by the same actor who played Toe Cutter in the very first Mad Max film.
Yeah.
It's what that I love
Double
that little
villain.
tidbit that he got to play the two best baddies
Yeah.
in the Mad Max series. I think that's great.
I think you're forgetting about Humongous, but that's fine.
Dude, Humongous is great. But you gotta get away from just the Jack dude, okay?
It's true.
I'm beginning to suspect that you don't hate the assless chaps.
Humongous doesn't wear assless chaps. Wes does.
True. Wes does.
The fact that I know that doesn't help. The fact that I know that doesn't necessarily help my case. You know who's cool? Furiosa. She's a girl. That's good. And Furiosa is really cool. And I think that's one of the key takeaways
is just badass, dude.
That whole character, she has so much depth. She got a lot of praise, or George Miller or whoever, that this movie got a lot of praise for Furiosa and a strong female character like that. Mm-hmm. But all of George Miller's Mad Max movies have had that kind of leading up to it. So the Warrior Woman in Road Warrior, Tina Turner's character is, even though I'm not a Tina Turner fan, I think that character is very well rounded and deep and interesting. And then I'm blanking on the girl, Savannah something, the girl from the Oasis. She is also kind of in the same vein, I think, of a tapestry of strong women that kind of lead up to Furiosa. And Furiosa, much like Fury Road, is the most perfect version of all of those other things combined, I think.
Yeah, and Charlize Theron,
her just makeup, her lack of an arm, her whole everything, her attitude and everything. She's so cool.
The makeup. You can just see a picture of Furiosa with like the black makeup, and immediately you're like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
She means, but like, don't mess with her.
Yeah.
Just don't fuck with her.
Shaved head, back makeup, I get
it. Yeah. One of my favorite things they did with that character, though, was it's true what you said. Fury Road is her story. She's the hero. She's trying to save the wives.
Yeah.
But I love how the setup for you as the audience to know what she's doing, there is no lead up.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally she's driving the tanker. You understand immediately, like, she's the one. She does these missions. She's the badass. She's got a prosthetic robotic arm. She's lost an arm for a Mountain Joe. Like, you understand this stuff.
And all these other, like, henchmen that are on the party with her are just, like, taking orders. They're like, hey, we're not going the right way. She's like, we're going this way. I'm like, okay, we're going this way, everybody.
But it's like, so you understand she's high up. She's a right-hand kind of person.
Yeah.
But I love that she immediately, like, your introduction to her is her going against Mountain Joe. Like, just turning off of the road.
Yeah.
Are we not going to Gastown?
Yeah.
Nope, we're going east. Okay. And you learn through this whole chase, like, oh shit, she's been plotting to rescue these women. And she gets a lot of credit for being, like you said, the strong female character, and she deserves that because she is one of the strongest female characters we've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But those wives are not weak.
No, not at all.
Like, they are badasses.
Yeah.
And one of them's pregnant.
And an easy thing to miss is Joe has a conversation with the old lady when he first finds out they're gone. And he's like, Furiosa stole him, and she's like, no, they asked Furiosa to help her, like help them escape. Like they wanted to leave you,
Yeah.
and they were just fed up with your shit, and that's why they like painted on the ground like our children will not be warlords and all this stuff. And so yeah, they're that group, which are mostly models, but they're all also badasses, are really cool. Also part like pregnant partly, and which makes it even more difficult to escape, but still going for it. And it really is a cool part.
Yeah. So I think honestly, people tend to overlook these things. I mean, I'm guilty of doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
But rewatching it was like very telling of me of like, oh no, Charlize Theron is not the only strong female of this film.
Yeah.
She's just, her name's on like the title card.
Mm-hmm.
Like the others are not. So she's going to take the cake. But I'm like, man, these women, they don't shy away. They're in this fight. They understand if shit goes, well, not if, when shit goes sideways, they're going to be expected to like pick up a weapon. They're going to be expected to do whatever it takes to survive, because if everyone else is doing it for their sake, they damn well do it too. And I like that mentality. I'm okay with that mentality.
Yeah, I was watching it. I was like, this is a very feminist movie. Like every woman in this movie is a good guy, and every man in the movie is not a good guy, with the exception of Max and Nux, which they're gray area good guys. They're not really good,
right?
They're better than the rest of them are really bad. So you kind of get the idea.
Mountain Joe's pretty terrible. He's a gross villain.
So gross.
But he's so gross, dude. He's so gross. Like, it's just nasty to look at him.
Yeah.
And that's even when it's just his back all boiled and pale, and you're like,
yeah.
Ew. Ew.
Yeah. But it's not even saying like morally.
I know. Yeah, that's before you learn that he's got these wives that he uses for breeding, and he's milking them, and ugh.
Yeah.
But I love how Max gets mixed up into all of this, because it's exactly like he does in the others, where wrong place, right time. I say right time because like he kind of had like he helps. He ends up, even if he doesn't really want to at first, but he's going to, because he realizes, like, all right.
Just like the other movies, they probably wouldn't have been successful if he wasn't there.
Right. And he's pretty blunt about it. He's pretty like, you're going to need me to do this. Hate to break it to you. But I do like he has to have that happen to him with Nux, where Nux is telling him like, I'm going to have to drive the rig. You're going to need me to drive the rig. Like, all right. I love the whole like setup with Max and Nux telling them like, hey, just bring my blood bag with me, which is Max.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just tie him to the front of the car. And that's how Max gets mixed up in this giant race. I think it's one of the best. He's not guilted into it. He's not like, there's no deal made for him. He's literally just dragged along and tied up. I love that he spends the first while of this race just watching all this shit happen around him that he can't do anything about, and having no understanding of anything happening around him. I love that. And I think Tom Hardy does a really good job of kind of showing you that, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point. I really like Tom Hardy as Max. Yeah. I think that he is a good replacement for Mel Gibson. I think it translates easily. Max in general, I love more in Fury Road because, like I said, you get an insight into his psyche more, where the Mel Gibson Mad Max, there's nothing wrong with him. He's great, but it's all visual, open interpretation. You see like just his face or his tics, and he doesn't say a lot, doesn't have a lot of dialogue. Where Tom Hardy also doesn't have too much dialogue, but he has some narration that gives you an insight like, yeah, you're legit mad. You're a crazy dude.
Right.
You lost it. You're tormented by these past people or experiences or failures. And I love that. And I think Tom Hardy plays it so well
Yeah.
he has a lot of great roles, but this is among his best.
It's one of my favorites of his. I thought it was cool that he did get like Mel Gibson's blessing to take over the role. I read a fun thing with George Miller watching the premiere of Fury Road with Gibson next to him.
Oh, nice.
And bragging about like while watching it, Gibson's jabbing him in the ribs and like chuckling, but not in a like a mean chuckle, but in a chuckle of like, that's awesome. How the fuck did you film this? How the fuck did you pull that one off? This looks great. And I'm like, that's got to speak to like that kind of friendship. And I know a lot of really great friendships or relationships have that moment where you can experience something together that the other person has made or had any part in. And you guys can share that kind of like, oh my God, that shared like love for it and kind of just appreciation of it. I think that's cool that Mel Gibson, not only as the original Max, but also one of the best directors. Like Mel Gibson as a director is amazing. Mel Gibson as an actor is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So to have that guy having all of this under his belt, like giving props to George Miller, I think that's really cool. And George Miller talked about like, it was really neat having Mel Gibson kind of give him these props and give him these like surprising reactions, nothing negative, just simple, like, how do you pull this off? And you know what? You watch Fury Road and there's plenty of that movie where I think, how the hell did you pull this off?
Yeah. Especially when you find out how little is CGI. You're like, I can't believe you really did that. You really flipped those trucks. You made all of these vehicles practically, like these are legit cars that you built to make function that worked for the most part until they didn't have to anymore. They got blown up or whatever. But they're done in very creative ways. And Morton Joe's my favorite one, where it's like two stacked cars and both of those engines are like hooked together. So it's like twice as powerful. It's insane.
It's such a tall car for such a large human.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. You know, Fury Road, I'm going to give the CGI credit in it. But the whole scene where they go into that giant storm.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I'm watching it this earlier, right? And I'm like, this might be one of the most stunning, like, scenes. The cinematography in Fury Road, yeah, it's a huge action film, but the cinematography is mind-blowing in this movie. Like, just, oh my God.
Yeah. And that is definitely one of the most incredible scenes that is unbelievably shot and unbelievably brilliant and scary, where you're like, okay, if only 10 to 20% of this movie is CGI, this scene is most of it probably, because I doubt you drove into a giant tornado hurricane in the middle of the desert. So it looks amazing, but that has to be at least a lot of CGI.
It looks amazing. Like, it's so incredible. I found myself thinking while watching it, I was like, it's a pretty destructive scene, right? But the lighting and just the way that it's shot, I was like, man, this is it's such an intense sequence, but it's so disturbingly beautiful to look at. It was one of those scenes where I was like, I kind of want to find a screenshot of it and like just have the screenshot of that.
Yeah.
It looks so cool. And then on top of that, then you get like any time during the desert chase scene, like when they're crashing, when you got the guys on the poles coming down, those shots over the people on the poles where they're like dropping down. Holy shit. It was funny. You would have thought that I had just watched the movie for the first time this week. And I'm like, I promise I've seen it 100 times, but
it's always incredible. And there's those wide shots of all these different vehicles and the dirt coming up behind them, and they're all so different. And then that guy wailing on a guitar on the front of that vehicle with flames coming out of the neck of his guitar. And you're like, at that point, when you have these giant speakers going on and they're attached to the vehicle as well, he's just the bard and going into battle. You're like, this movie is unbelievably cool.
It's unbelievable. So I know, like, when we were talking about Thunderdome, I made the joke or the crack about, like, oh, when they have musicians guest star, they're always going to sing their song or play their songs or whatever. It works in Fury Road. And it works for two very specific reasons. One, it makes sense. Like, this guitar player just kind of fits in, like, Emoton Joe's.
Yeah. He's not shoehorned in. He they would do
for
this.
some weird reason that you can't really pinpoint. You're like, yeah, I get it. I get this. But my favorite thing about the guy playing the guitar, it's part of the actual soundtrack. Like, it's not just the music of the film, but he's actually playing the chase sequence, and it's like, it serves so much to it. It adds so much more emotion and just like, I just lost the word. God damn it. Fuck you, 11%. I'm feeling that beer now. Yeah.
The whole soundtrack, I believe Junkie XL did it, and he's always incredible.
So
but the
good.
whole soundtrack is so good.
And that guitar playing is like, every time he pulls on the whammy bar actually controlled the flamethrower that's on it. But every time that he pulls on the strings and gets those higher notes and stuff, I'm like, it fits what you're watching.
And he's kind of on like bungee cords, like trying to jump off the front of the car and being pulled back. Just the energy of the whole scene. That's one tiny piece of it.
By the time he shows up, you're already halfway through the chase scene.
Yeah.
And now you've got this live guitar player just wailing away with a flamethrower attached to the guitar. And you're like, this is so intense.
This makes
I'm already tired.
Yeah.
But I like the one thing that Fury Road is incredible all around. I really genuinely love Fury Road so much, but I'm so blown away and just like in awe of the cinematography of that movie. The way that George Miller shot that film is just so like, it's incredible to me. And just all the decision makings, all those like transitions into the chase, out of the chase, into the truck, into like one of the cars blowing up, having the camera go back through an explosion. I'm like, the movie is just mind fucking.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is the editing. The editing is so good.
The editing is unreal.
I knew that Margaret Sixel, his wife, George Miller's wife, edited it, but I didn't know that she'd never edited an action movie before this. And so she took all of this footage that he shot and made this movie, having never edited an action movie before, and came up with this. Like, are you joking me?
I know.
And I think it's like the Fury Road's the first Mad Max movie to get like a bunch of award season prestige, which is a big deal. And obviously it deserves it because it is the perfect version of it. But to do something for the first time and to nail it that hard is incredible to me.
It's incredible. The movie blows me away. And I found myself so like, it's one of those movies where being sucked into it kind of hit me different this week. And I don't know if it was just knowing that we're about to take an extended break. And that's, like I said at the start, it's a little bittersweet, but it's all good. It's all good. But I was like, when the final sequence of this movie came up, you got Furiosa's trying to drive. She gets stabbed in the side, which is one of the, that's an intense part. Because you honestly, as a viewer, you're like, I don't know if anyone's going to survive this movie.
Yeah. And especially her, you're like, if anybody survives, it's probably Max. He's always survived so far, right. But she's brand new. She could die at any time.
She could die at any moment. Probably not early, but they could kill her off. Luckily they don't, but the whole, from her being stabbed on is just some of the most intense, emotionally intense action sequences, because that's when, Nux is really kicking into, he's no longer a part of the Emoton cult, if you will.
Yeah.
He's really kind of stepped away. You've got the wives that are like, they're trying to survive. They've lost one at this point, which is like crazy intense. And then you get the real gross part where Emoton's telling the not doctor, but one of his henchmen to cut the baby out. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And you see him hold the foot and you're like, this is crazy disturbing right now.
Yeah.
There's no blood. Crazy fucking disturbing though. Like, what the fuck? But when they have to go back through, I love how the whole chase is just a giant horseshoe.
Right. Yeah, you are banking so hard on them getting to their destination, and they get there, and there's not really anything there, and they have to go back, and you're like, oh no. You're doing it again. You get like a brief break with like where you get to catch your breath a little bit, and then they turn around and go back.
But the journey back is like higher stakes now.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what they're about to face. It's no longer them chasing them. Now it's like, oh no, they're coming right at you at this point. Like this is bad. And not only is it Emoton Joe's whole group, but now you got that like that other desert clan. I forget what they're called. But
well, there you got like the leader of the Bullet Farm and the Gastown guy, and they all like team up.
And you've got everyone coming at you now. Like they're no longer behind you. They're all going to be in front of you. You're going to have to make your way through it. It's so intense. But the part that really like kind of got to me, because it's just so, it's such a cool scene, like visually incredible, is how they shot that whole last sequence of Nux getting behind the wheel of the rig, and they're going back through, was it the ammo, like the desert area with the big old arch in it, in the rocks. And like they're detaching. It's, oh my God. You see Emoton Joe's son, they kill him. Emoton Joe's death.
Yeah.
It's so brutal and gross for being an off-screen kill.
Right. Yeah. And that's something I think George Miller does a lot. Like we mentioned, the other movies have violence, but a lot of it's off-screen. And this is one of the big ones for sure.
But you get the point.
Yeah.
So quick when his mask gets ripped off and you're like, that probably didn't just take the mask. That had to have like, oh, he's limp. Yeah, he's dead. This is if they show him, he's gross. And it is.
Yeah.
It's like the bloody version of The Ring. But but I love Nux in this like final sequence. Dude, I love that character. And it hit me this time, not like, oh, but just that, like, he does the witness thing again, but it's no longer for Valhalla or validation to get into Valhalla. It's no longer for, like, I'm just a part of Emoton Joe's whatever. When he does the witness me part, it's more, to me, it really felt like kind of hoping for validation in your redemption.
Right.
And that's like, to me, I'm like, man, that's a pretty, that's a powerful thing. Cause I think that's something everyone strives for, is like, can give me validation that I'm doing something right.
Right. Right. And that that it's not too late, that you made this mistake to follow this guy, and he wasn't everything you thought he was. He ended up just being a dude that, was a dick. That it's not too late. You can still redeem yourself, and that there wasn't the glory you thought you would find on the Fury Road, but you did find glory in the sense that you saved these women and you saved these people that needed saving, basically.
Yeah, and the ultimate sacrifice, him pulling the rig and crashing everything. I love watching the brother like get thrown into the ground. It's so quick. I think a lot of people might miss it. I don't even know if I noticed it the first couple times I watched the movie, but when they do that wide shot where they pull back when Nux pulls the rig and like tips it all, you can see the brother's body just like head first into the dirt before the vehicle falls on him. It's like, it's such a split second, but when I saw it again this week, I was like, Yes, it's so I don't know why because the big beefed up brother
Yeah.
or son, he doesn't do a lot in the movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't do a lot. He drinks some milk,
Mhm.
which is creepy to watch him drink milk. It just
Mhm.
is, folks. It just is. He's like he gets in the way. He's like that annoying guy that just never goes away in an action movie where you're like,
Yeah.
"Could you just fuck off already?"
Well, you get the
He's
idea
that guy.
that he's big, he's strong, he should be the heir of Joe,
Yeah.
but he just kind of follows Joe around. He's like, "Hey, Dad, can we go do this? Can I help? Can I do anything?" And he's like, "No, fuck off! Like, get out of here!" Like,
You're a nuisance.
yeah,
Uh, so when he finally died, like I love watching him just eat dirt. It's for some reason it's so satisfying to me.
hmm
But I love that whole sequence. Just like honestly, credits could have rolled there,
yeah,
and I still would have thought like, what a great ending! What a great just this is so good. What an amazing film.
hmm
Uh, I do love like all the little nods to the old Mad Max trilogy because there are several, and I
yeah,
think this treats the requel mentality really well,
hmm
where it still has so much respect for where it came from. Obviously, because it's George Miller himself doing this
right.
himself.
It doesn't feel so much like, "Hey, look at this thing that you remember." It feels more like, "Here's this thing that I love that I have been trying to make and perfect over time,
Mhm.
and getting closer and closer every time." And this is the movie where he's the closest so far. I feel
Yeah,
like he succeeded, but he may disagree. Um,
right.
but yeah,
But
that's what
I mean,
feels
if
like.
this is the last one he ever makes, like that's a good note to go on
I think so.
because it's a pretty amazing film.
Yeah.
But there are nods. We brought up like the shotgun from earlier.
hmm
They do that again in this one. It's super fast. So like if you haven't seen Road Warrior and you see it in this one, you just think like, oh, okay. If you
hmm
have seen Road Warrior and you watch it happen in this one, you're like, nice. He does the grunting. He does like there's just all these little things. He wears the same coat
hmm
that Mel Gibson wore. Well, it's a replica, but it's the same design as the coat.
Style. Yeah.
Yeah. The car. It's the
Yeah,
car.
the car from the beginning. The car that
Yes.
wasn't in Thunderdome, which is another downside of Thunderdome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that they have it again in this one is very
And
exciting.
it is
When you see it at the
rusted
beginning,
and
you're like,
aged to fuck.
yeah, you're like, this is awesome. And then it takes off and then crashes it immediately, but it's still
Yeah. No,
awesome.
no. But it's like that. I like it when fan service is done right. Luckily, we've had a handful that do this
Yeah.
really well. Uh, oh my god, Fury Road! Just like there's so much in it,
hmm
and but the biggest takeaways to me about Fury Road is just obviously the cinematography of it is unreal,
Yeah.
but the stunt work is just like
hmm
it's on a whole different level. It's on a whole like it's in its own category.
Right.
There's like
It's like
movie stunts.
the Olympics of stunt work.
It's like not even the Olympics because I feel like the Olympics has lost a lot of traction these days.
It's true. It's like the Oscars.
Yeah,
It used to be cool. But
was
no,
it though?
well, when I was a kid, it was cool.
True.
But I
But it's
totally know what you mean. Yeah, I
it's in a
focus a lot.
whole different.
I focus a lot on the stunt works and the cinematography, like you said. I also just love. This is the most perfect version of the weird lore that George Miller has put together,
Yeah,
and the society and the people and the culture and the names and the everything about it. The different like silos of work where Joe seems to control like the water and he has like these plants and stuff that he grows vegetation. And then there's a whole nother town that does all they do is gasoline. And there's a whole nother town, all they do is ammunition. And just all of the society that they've made is so specific and unique to this like apocalyptic genre, which can be so general. And I think that's why it's refreshing to have a specific vision for it.
yeah, and I really like that they had it kind of sanctioned off of like, yeah, this is the ammo. Whether it's like, I don't take the ammo, whatever that ammo town or whatever,
Mhm.
as like just ammunition for firearms. Although obviously they're going to have that because there's more guns in this one, I feel, than there have been in at least the previous two. But I also feel like they would carry car parts. They would carry, because vehicles are viewed as almost like your armory and your weapons, filled with all these other kinds of weapons. I imagine crossbows are probably still in there.
Yeah.
And I like
there's not a significant difference between how a gun works and a car works. I mean, they both are machines that operate off of combustion and ammunition and engines. They're very similar. So I could totally see that.
And I love that the lore of like currency isn't really a thing, but you still have to be able to purchase your goods, but it's all bartering. So I like that it's back to the old way of doing things, because history lesson, folks, that's how we used to do things a long time ago.
Don't worry, you'll learn about it soon enough.
History repeats itself.
You see a guy with a neck brace and a ski mask, that'll be me. I'll be out there fucking shit up.
But don't worry, he won't be super jacked.
No, it's true. I'm like, I need to get jacked like ASAP.
But I like that it still maintained that, and it's almost like Bartertown, like expanded, or the mentality of that expanded, because as flawed as Bartertown was in Thunderdome, the principle or the idea of it still worked.
Yes, definitely. And I feel like that is the case for all of the movies. There are things in it that are great. There are things of it that could be improved. And it's all rolled up into Fury Road to make it just the perfect version of it.
Yeah. It's just, oh my God. It's so good. I fucking love Fury Road. It's mind-blowing. Like, when I hear people say they don't like Fury Road, and I know there's a bunch of you out there. Why?
Yeah.
I legit, it's one of those movies I legitimately don't understand how people can't enjoy.
Yeah. I think that it's the only thing I would understand is there are parts of it that are gross, like the people and the things and the content. Some people are not into that, and I get that. It is a uniquely gross movie in several ways. But for me, I think it's cool.
It feels, you and I...
And anybody who's a realist, if you're in an apocalypse, there's going to be a lot of gross people doing gross things. You got to keep an eye out.
It's not going to be a good times. I can't believe I never really put the Western mentality, thought about that with Mad Max until you brought it up, like this whole week. In our Western episode, long time ago, folks, go listen to it. It's a good one.
Yeah.
You and I talked a lot about, like, some of our favorite Westerns are the ones that feel gross. They feel dirty. They feel gritty. You feel like you're in that time. You're not just watching a film, but you actually kind of feel it.
Yeah.
Fury Road, I mean, I brought it up earlier where, like, it feels hot. It feels like you're in a desert. But as the movie progresses, it feels like you have gotten dirty with everybody. You feel like everyone's sweating their asses off. Everyone's collecting dirt for 2 hours. And you're like, when credits roll, you're like, I kind of feel like I should shower. I feel like if I did that with my hair, like sand is going to fly out.
Yeah. You feel like you were there.
You do. And that is so telling. Oh my God, it's so good. You had all these notes, and I feel like I
no, I feel
said
like we
more than you.
It. That was pretty much. I mean, you covered a good amount. I covered a good amount. We could, if we wanted to, talk about Fury Road forever, but that's all of the high points, I think.
We probably could. Did you have any notes that we did not touch on that you wanted to, Jake? I kind of stole your point. I'm sorry.
I don't think so. I feel like I talked enough. More than enough, probably. We can talk about Seal some more if you want to.
Oh man, we do not need to talk about Seal.
He was cooler when he was still married to Heidi Klum. That's kind of a bummer for him, but
yeah, Batman Forever.
I didn't mean we actually don't have to talk about it.
Right? Was it Batman Forever, or is that?
I thought it was
or
Batman
did he
and
do
Robin.
that song for Batman and Robin? Which one was it?
I thought it was Batman and Robin. Hold on. Fact check. Live fact check. Oh my God, it's Forever. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
So that came out in like 95. God, we didn't even know who the fuck Seal was in 95.
Speak for yourself, my friend.
Oh, shut the fuck up. You didn't know who he was.
No, I didn't learn about it until like 2006, probably.
That's what I thought.
In high school.
And then it was already a giant joke.
Yeah. In high school, I was like, this is kind of a banger of a song. Oh, this is from Batman Forever? What?
Isn't that your favorite Batman movie of all time, Jake?
I never said that. I don't know what you're talking about. Putting words in my mouth.
It's his all-time favorite, guys.
Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition is my favorite, for the record.
For the record.
Just want that to be clear.
I was being sarcastic.
Before it gets out into the zeitgeist that people think that.
Dude, I'm going to have to come up with some kind of shit-talking thing for you and Seal. And Batman Forever.
Good luck. I'm going to talk about how you're...
Dude,
who's that chick we were talking about? Adele. You're Adele's favorite. Biggest fan.
So many different...
It's been a fun episode.
Listen to Rollin' in the Deep. If you listen to Rollin' in the Deep, you're going to be like, oh.
I know the old song, like Rollin'. You know, that's
Tina Turner.
That's Rollin' in the Deep.
Yeah, that's Tina Turner. No, that's Tina Turner.
Isn't that Rollin' in the Deep by Adele?
Yeah. He just sang the song that I was making fun of when we were talking about Tina Turner and Thunderdome.
Okay, well, it all came back around. What's old is new again.
Man, I'm trying to figure out, I managed to segue to my daughter making fun of me for being an old man, to The Office, to, well, you segued into Seal from Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Adele.
Covered a lot in this episode.
Oh my God. We have ADHD'd the shit out of this episode, man.
We had a lot of thoughts to get out before we take a break. I thought it was fun.
This was a blast. This is so good.
All right. I think that's about it. Let us know anything we missed, anything you were curious about or like or dislike about Mad Max. Hit us up on Facebook and Instagram. We're always happy to talk about it. If you bring it up, we will go on and on about it if you want to. So
I just remembered there was one funny, silly thing that I was like, that'll be a fun tidbit to bring up.
Okay.
So, cake bakery stuff. I forget the name of the company, but they have a silver spray it's edible. You can put it on cakes.
Yeah.
They had no sales. Fury Road came out and became directly responsible for this company constantly selling units. It was a huge sales spike.
I remember that.
I thought was that's awesome for these companies making this edible spray.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck does that say about people?
Yeah. I remember Halloween right after this came out. Every scrawny guy like me put on a bald cap and spray painted their mouth silver, and they went as war boys. And it was
everybody was a war boy.
A thing, yeah. That's hilarious.
I just thought that was funny. I mean, the movie directly helped this company just boost sales, but people,
yeah,
it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's edible.
That was my last tidbit. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Make sure you go and buy your shit because we're going to be taking it away pretty soon to
check out our merch. It's at if you can find it at movieboners.com. There's a tab or a button or whatever it's called. Also on Facebook and Instagram, link in the bio. There's all kinds of good stuff there.
Tell us your favorite Mad Max stuff. Tell us how awesome you think Tina Turner is in Thunderdome. Would you survive the Thunderdome?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you in a while.
Yep.
That feels weird to say.
Find us on, we'll let you know on Facebook and Instagram when we're coming back, or if you're subscribed wherever, Spotify, wherever, you'll be notified. Just keep a lookout. We'll be back.
Sanjay, congratulations and all that, because he's going to be a dad pretty soon. So
send Dustin congratulations. He's been a dad for a very long time because he's an old man.
Apparently. She's going to be 13, man.
That's crazy.
Fucking weird. You knew me before I was even a dad.
Yep.
Man.
Long time.
Long time. Well, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for everything, and we will see you
Later.
next time.
Yep. See you.